p.m. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Emily Daly. Here. Ron Ortiz.
Here.
Dr. Guy Shambo.
Yes. Here. There's a quorum. Mr. Park, wait, let me get seated properly. My brain cells work. Part two, adoption of agenda. Are there any changes? If so, what?
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. If I could just take a moment, we have another person sitting at the table here, Ms. Jennifer Griego. I'd like to welcome her to the board and to the table here. Jennifer Griego is our new special ed director.
Oh,
You're welcome.
Congratulations. In your honor, I'll have this meeting last until 10 o'clock.
So so Mr. President, we have got a message that the Blue Water construction update, Jeremy Trumbull is still on his way. So there are no changes to the agenda other than when we get to that point, if he's not here, I suggest that we move it to the latter part of the presentations. With that, I recommend that we approve the agenda as is, as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
To approve the agenda as presented, motion, okay. Roll call. What's wrong with me?
Emily Daly.
Yes.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dr. Guy Shambo.
Yes. Motion carries. Adoption of minutes. Recommendation, Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we adopt the minutes of July 21st, 2022 as presented.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? To approve the minutes as presented. Roll call.
Emily Daly.
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Sorry for me to vote, I didn't hear the motion.
Okay. Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dr. Guy Shambo.
Yes. Motion carries. Recognitions, Mr. Pettis.
President, Board, there are no formal recognitions this evening.
Thank you. Citizens to address the board.
Mr. President, we do have one request, however, she is not present at the moment.
Okay. Presentations.
Presentations, as I mentioned at the beginning, Blue Water presentation, I'd like to ask that we put that down for a little bit later. If I can go ahead and start with our student performance baseline data.
Okay. Please proceed.
Pulling it up, so it'll be Ms. Reina Sanchez that will be presenting.
Martin's pulling it up for me. We have so many monitors, we get to see Dr. Martin 3 times?
Do you want me to do this one?
That's good. You may have. Yeah, in case somebody comes in.
Mr. President, board members, Mr. Pettis, we're gonna present 2022 baseline, 2022, 2023 baseline data for you this year. So this is where we will start the year with our data studies, with our instructional coaches, with our principals and their teams, moving through the year. But we thought it was important to show exactly what we'll be using for our key performance indicators, what will start our year off, and then what it'll look like going through. So for our summative assessments for key performance indicators, we've got 3 there. The first one is gonna be our GCCS quarterly assessments. So these assess standards by quarter for English language arts and for math. This year we will be adding science. We don't have baselines for those, but just a heads up. Science and social studies will be coming this coming year as we establish their district learning plans for those two subjects with the new social studies standards there. And then kindergarten through 12th grade are assessed on our quarterly assessments. Remember that these assess standards that are taught within that quarter, so it's a summative by quarter. In the box number 2, we have IMASA, which is the interim measures of student success and achievement. These assess college and career readiness content standards in reading, writing, language, and math. These are designed to measure progress towards on grade level proficiency, and we'll be using our end of year assessment from last year for our baseline. And so that's what we will compare to as we go throughout the year for the beginning and middle and end. We'll use the end of the year as our baseline from last year. For our third one, we have our iStation indicators of progress that reflects reading ability of the students, and it measures growth over time. And so we're looking at that one as a EOY for each student, and then we look at growth over time for that one.
Question, is that for all grades?
iStation is K2 reported to state, but we actually use it K6. So we have other internal that we use, but K2 is reported to the state. For our number 4, we have in-class participation. These are our formative key performance indicators. And so these are what we use on a daily. So teacher observation, in-class participation, student work samples with teacher comments, discussion with parents and teachers. All of that is formative to how we change our instruction. The big one, and I did it bigger and on purpose, is our examining student work. So we use this protocol in all of our PLCs. It has become a very effective practice. It changes our instruction as teachers talk to each other, as they see where they need to make changes. We've had a whole lot of feedback on this one from our teachers, saying, I've learned so much about my teaching from my colleagues. I've learned so much about what I can do better and what my students need from me. I've learned about how my teaching can change and my students' performance changes in turn to that. This is weekly data to inform instruction. And so this is qualitative and quantitative for us. We can take down how many students were proficient on that lesson, and we can have that data, but we could also have Ms. Griego, this is where I really need you to look at your teaching versus how your students are doing and what we can do to adjust there. All of our instructional coaches and our administrators are in these meetings, and so it's a really good conversation from the whole team with our teachers. And then the last one is PLC discussions. So on top of the examining student work in there, they talk about standards. They talk about data from previous years. They look at all of our baselines. They look at all of our formative and summative assessment data, and they decide what we need to do to change what we're already doing to make everything better. Each of our key performance indicators have data attached to them. So we look at this as a district. We look at the district level. We then go to a school level. We go to grade levels. We go to class sections. We go to students. We go to subpopulations. There's all the different subpopulations that we look at and we pull together data from. And then we go to an item analysis. And so we look at every item that we tested on those and how our students did in regards to that item, in regards to that standard. This one is not in your packet, but it was something that I pulled together a little bit later. So this is an example of one of the ones that we would use. So this is IMASA, the interim assessment. And this one shows the blue line is the beginning of the year, the orange line is the middle of the year, and the purple is the end of the year. So we could look at this. This one is third grade, and remember that IMASA does reading, language usage, and math. And so this one is language usage for IMASA, and you can see from the blue to the purple how much growth we had last year in third grade. And this is district-wide. So this is an example of one of the things that we would look at the district level. And then we take this from the district level and we go down to the school, and we go down to the classroom, and we go down to students, go down to subgroups, we go down to items. This slide actually came from Dr. Steinhaus's presentation at the NMCEL conference, and Mr. Perez presented this at the summit last week. This is showing growth for Native American students K2 using iStation, and Cubero Elementary was on that presentation that Dr. Steinhaus did. So this one is showing stellar growth for Native American students K2, and Cabral Elementary showed very, very significant growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year on iStation. So we're very proud of them for that one.
Now, when you talk about growth, are you comparing it to where they should be at or where they started because of COVID?
This is where they should be. So this is scoring a level 3 or higher. And so this is showing where they should be. So this is not just where they were from COVID and where they should be. This is level 3. So this is like as if they were in a regular year and COVID never happened. They're still showing this kind of growth at a level 3.
And that's grade level?
That's grade level. Mhm.
So I want to emphasize this because I was at the presentation that Dr. Steinhaus presented. There are a few slides like this in different categories, but I'd say probably a total of about 5 slides that the secretary pointed out in that big crowd of about 300 people. And I'm just proud to see that this is not the end, but I think this is a good indicator that we're starting to see some results. And my message to the principals the week after was we hope to see more of this at the next summer data review.
I guess the feeling I had was that based on the slide before, whether we would be, can you go back to that slide? If the purple line would be lower because of COVID and any kind of growth would kind of be skewed, but you're doing the same thing with the other one? Okay.
And you can see on the next one, if you can go past. This one, I know the first one is really tiny, but I wanted you to see the first one. If we were to move the magnified view, this is all of the standards that were taught, and this is math in 3rd grade, and this is from Blue Water Elementary. And so this one actually shows the Blue Water average in blue, and then it shows the district average in orange and the state average in purple. And so you can see at Blue Water Elementary in math in 3rd grade, how you can see all that blue at the top right there. And that's how much better they're doing than the district and the state there. And so what we'll do there is we talked to Amanda today, the instructional coach out there, and said, okay, for your 3rd grade, what are you doing for math? And we had that discussion with the instructional coaches today. What are you doing in math that's different than, the other schools are doing? Because it's obvious from this graph that they're getting those concepts a lot better. And so next week when we meet with the grade level teams, all of them will show this data again, and they'll go over it and they'll say, on these standards, you blew it out of the water. What are you doing and how can you help us to do better? And these are the item analysis conversations that we'll have at every one of the campuses and every one of our meetings that are with grade level bands all the way across. And so we do this, like I said, we drill down to the student. And in a conversation that we had, we know that we can't pull a group of students and say this particular intervention works perfect just for this group of students, but we do have specific interventions that work for individual students. And so when we see that they need that, that's how we change the instruction to meet with them. Ms. Griego and I are already talking about how we're going to work together, regular education and special education, to make sure that all of our students have what they need. To make sure that they know that her and I are working together to make sure that no matter if they're on an IEP or if they're being in the process of testing or whatever it is, that we're making sure every one of our students is getting what they need, so that we're very intentional on moving our scores up, so that all of our schools are shown a state presentations like Cabral.
And that has to be astounding because when people talk about the impact of COVID and the closed schools, the hybrid, that they were even not at grade level before, so they're even more below grade level. And then we see the progress almost doubling where we were a year ago or a year and a half ago. Guess I can tell them that it's not as bad. Everybody else is painting a bleak picture, but it seems like we're accomplishing something.
I think part of it is our approach and I think that from the very beginning, we said that's something that we can't do anything about except for work harder. And our teachers have done just that. They've worked harder. Our principals and our instructional coaches have got together and said, this is what this group of students or this student needs, and they've done that. Everybody has just said it's not something that we can change. And so we've just gotta do more to get our students where they need to be. And our teachers have, they worked very, very hard in extended learning time and K-5 plus and after school programs and enrichment with STEM and other things that we've been asking them to do on top of their regular duties and then filling in all of those gaps from COVID and online learning. But they've been troopers for sure.
And I'd like to add that if you notice that in all of our conversations that we had, we don't talk a lot about the COVID impact or the dark days of COVID. We realize that, we acknowledge that there's probably some learning loss and that kind of thing. But I don't think it serves us well to just, dwell on that. So we intentionally have our conversations about here we are, we're looking forward.
Yeah, that was the thing I was worried about, was the learning loss and how that is going to affect our data and our scores. And just the perception that because of COVID that, those students that were even not at grade level to before are even lower now. And so it's gonna take an extraordinary effort to move them up grade level or even past grade level. And I see the other schools in our area close to suffering those things. And I don't know, we could use these, not to put you on the spot, but some kind of blueprint that other schools can follow so that if those kids that are coming from those schools that are not at grade level, they're gonna be here. And so, we don't want them to go backward, we want them to move forward.
Our district learning plans are our blueprints, so that's what we teach and we stick to it.
Some more? Is that it?
That's it.
Questions,
Simple.
comments? Thank you for making a presentation and organizing it in a way that we can understand it. We then should be able to prepare ourselves for continued progress monitoring. But this is meant to be aligned with our strategic plan that we are supposed to accomplish those things. So whenever we present data, you must be able to explain it in the context of what progress we're making on the goals that we've set forth for the kids, and do all the necessary disaggregation that we need to differentiate between those students. Thank you. Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Board, so we have Mr. Trumbull here for the Blue Water construction update. If it's okay, I'd like to have him come up and present from FBT Architects. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Trumbull, greetings.
Thank you for having me again. It's good to see you all in person and not tiny screens. I think this is the first time I've been able to be in front of you since the project began. So thanks for having me.
Very good.
I understand you have a schedule in your package. Small version.
I can put it on the screen if you want.
If you've got it on yours, that's fine. If everybody can reference that, that would be the easiest way to go. We are still making headway at Blue Water. We are working with the states to accomplish all of their requirements and all of the parts and pieces of the project to get it out to bid. We've got a few small pieces left to the puzzle. There has been one requirement passed down from the environmental department on the septic system. I feel like we presented in the past that Blue Water is not able to connect to the town and the village of Blue Water's sewer system. It's not a reliable system. They cannot guarantee that the new facility will be served by the existing sewer system in the village, all the way to the lagoons there in Blue Water. So the plan is to do on-site septic and on-site treatment for the sewer system. The state now requires us to do what's called secondary treatment of that system. So it's not just a simple septic tank and leach field, it's got a secondary filtration system that goes through that system. For that, we needed a specialty engineer and a special design consultant on our team. I feel like that's been approved and moved forward as of today. So we were working with Livingston and Associates to provide those engineering services for that piece. They anticipate about 4 to 6 weeks to complete the design. During that time, we'll be doing final QC and coordination of the construction documents. At that point, we would submit to PSFA for review. And they take roughly 6 to 8 weeks to review the project and provide permit through CID. So we would be hoping to hit that at the end of October. Timeframe for having the project ready to hit the streets for a contractor. The contractor, the bidding portion of the project will be an RFP. So it's not a low bids project. That takes a little bit of time. The contractors are required to submit a full RFP. There's a qualifications package and a pricing package that go along with that. And then once those are in place, we shortlist and then we interview contractors and score them in that regard. So they get points for their qualifications, their price, and their interview. We rank those contractors and then select. That process takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get everything through, and all that follows regular procurement for pre-proposals, time on the street, time for the contractors to respond to questions, all of those parts and pieces. That puts us right at the end of the year to hopefully have a contractor selected, ready to go at Blue Water. We anticipate and are optimistic that with that schedule, we could have about a 12-month construction period. The projects that we're working on currently are not seeing major delays due to construction materials or supply chain issues or increased costs. Everything seems to have sort of mellowed out, at least in the grand scheme of things. There are a few parts and pieces that we're surprised with on a general basis. Glazing got more expensive last month by 30%. So things like that are still a surprise during construction that we're trying to deal with. A 12-month construction period is what we anticipate, and that would allow the contractor to build the new facility to the north side of the existing facilities. Completely safe, separate from the kids, have complete access for construction on the north side of the existing campus. Once the new building's built, kids can move in, they can be operational, fully functional, ready to go. And then we would allow the contractor to come in. The building needs to be abated, all the asbestos in the existing facility needs to be removed. That is taking quite a bit of time these days. We're anticipating 6 to 8 weeks of on-site work to be abated to happen. So that's a pretty slow process. The contractor can be doing additional site work and things during that time. Then they come back, pull down the existing building, and finish the site work at that point. So we would be done with construction hopefully around March of 2024. And that runs through the schedule pretty fast. I do have plans and anything you'd like to know about building. Answer any questions about the schedule that you might have or our current status.
Just a question, do we have pictures like we do with the Mesa View project somewhere available? Okay. And I just wanted to know if we had them in the hard form on the foam board?
Yeah, I believe that we've got them here.
Here, I'm sorry.
Fine, okay, we're good.
You
Just
know what?
make sure we had that. And I just wanted to, I know that we talked to the board in the past about the possibility of having like a groundbreaking in summer, which that's coming already. I wanted Mr. Trumbull to be here to explain how, things go. And this is not unusual that contract or buildings take this path. Well, one of the unforeseens was the sewer system, as he stated, and those kind of things. And then with all of our projects, the supply chain is also having an impact on the work that's being done, but still moving forward with all of the projects the best we can.
Board members, comments, questions? I don't have any questions either.
So when will we have a groundbreaking?
I think we could have a groundbreaking, I think a groundbreaking around the holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas time would probably be an appropriate time to anticipate ground and have a contractor that would be here and be able to do that before leaving for the Christmas holiday.
I get that question asked quite a bit, so.
Now, if you have groundbreaking, that means the next day we're gonna start doing more than groundbreaking.
I think it would be more of a ceremonial groundbreaking at that point, and construction would start after the holiday.
We need to just make it clear to the public that
You
even
can't
though
move
we're
in right away?
digging ditches, we're not gonna start the next day. We're not bringing and stuff, we're gonna wait till January.
That's correct. The contractor might, if everything falls into place and we're able to maintain this schedule, receive our permits, get all of those things in place, I would hope the contractor would be on board late December, able to show up at the site and put up construction fencing over the holiday. That's the ideal situation. They can fence off the site, protect it from kids, get it all completely separate from the existing facility. So when students come back the 1st of January, they are at least in their new construction area. They know their boundaries, parents know their boundaries as they're dropping kids off. That's, I think, a realistic and, kind of optimistic view on where we can do this.
Thank you. Appreciate you making your way over here to our meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Mr. Pettis,
Yes,
continue.
sir, Mr. President, the board, next up, we have staffing update before we move fully into that. We have the new teacher orientation coming up this Friday, and it's tied to this item, but we have a video that we'd like to share with the board that we're gonna be presenting to the new teachers on Friday. I thought you might enjoy.
I need you to get this screen off.
No one's.
No, hold on, I'll show you.
Max, do we have a list of the new personnel? All we have is the positions. I didn't see any.
Personnel.
A list of new names of personnel? Yeah.
See where,
No, wait,
I
I
can
got
get
it.
one.
okay.
I
They're just
usually send
positions.
it on, I send it on a weekly to.
Every Friday.
Well, let's wait till we get to that.
Yeah, all right. Anyway,
You have to share the sound.
thank you. Nope, still not happening, guys. What happened?
What's the
Can you
chance?
put the sound up on the,
Go ahead.
okay, let's try again. It should be coming through the speakers, right?
Just take your time. Figure it out.
The,
I have no idea what you're doing.
What happened?
Should be coming out of the speaker.
no, so we need to stop that, so it'll come out of here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe we will not share that.
Okay,
You got a speaker option up there too.
for now? Okay, third time's a charm, guys. Nope, still not. Oh, I know why. Okay, hold on.
Change your speaker.
It's this one. There we go.
That's gonna blast.
Not gonna blast it.
Turn it down.
What?
Keep going.
Don't touch it, Delta. Oh my God. One more time.
What? It's not working.
It's the wrong one. I chose the wrong one. Don't look. Here we go. All right. Thanks for your patience.
Bienvenidos.
Good na pagtanggap.
Welcome.
It's a great time to be in education.
Welcome to Grand Cibolo County Schools, where we are working to change the landscape of education in our community. We are creating new opportunities for staff and students alike. We are building a new learning environment by creating state-of-the-art schools that are designed to provide students with a healthy and safe place to be. Blue Water Elementary sits in the heart of the Blue Water community, a village of homes, farms, and ranches nestled in plains on the way to the Zuni Mountains. Teachers and staff have designed this building to be a secure, functional, and welcoming place for the students and parents.
And you ain't seen nothing yet.
And Blue Water Elementary is not the only school replacement we started. With over 400 students, Mesa View Elementary School is one of the largest schools in the district. Mesa View sits in the center of Grants and serves families and children from all walks of life. We are fortunate that our community has always supported the building and maintaining of schools and facilities for our students. We live in a diverse community full of natural and cultural beauty.
It's a great time to be in education.
With 10 schools in a district covering over 4,500 square miles, providing quality education is our #1 priority. Our mission statement says it all. Every student, every day, building a person for life. Yes, it's a great time to be in education, for staff and students alike. A well-rounded student life is important to all of us here at GCCS. Our athletes take healthy competition seriously, matching athletic performance with academic achievement. Academics, athletics, technology, state-of-the-art facilities. Yes, it's a great time to be in education.
And you haven't seen anything yet.
We're igniting the future for students. As part of our strategic plan, the district is investing $7 million in new career and technical education programs designed to offer new opportunities and prospects for our students. New educational pathways include construction trades, robotics, and we're introducing the most advanced technologies in education available today. Technology like virtual dissection tables providing three-dimensional anatomical imaging details unsurpassed by any school in the state, and for that matter, the nation. And there's more. The district is also investing in a new mechanical engineering and production lab. Students learn engineering and automation production techniques. It's about designing the future, not only for our students, but for our community. Labs like this are found only in universities. Now, students at GCCS have state-of-the-art technology literally at their fingertips. We care for our staff.
Take a look at what we offer our employees.
That's why the district offers a variety of incentives and benefit programs like sign-on bonuses, rural stipends for those working in our more remote schools, stipends for hard-to-fill positions, a variety of health and well-being programs, training and education opportunities for staff, and retirement programs. Yes, it's a great time.
It's a great time. A great time.
And there you have it. Encore.
That's nice. That's a
Is that
first.
on our website?
Not yet, we have plans.
That'll be presented to our new teachers on Friday, and then we'll use it however we can to promote the district.
What time on Friday?
8 to 3, and so we will be at Los Alamitos cafeteria at 8 o'clock.
So with that, that's the HR introduction. So staffing,
So good evening, Board Member President, Dr. Archambo, board members, Superintendent Mr. Pettis, and our community members. I'd like to present our staffing update. Of course, I'd like to acknowledge Steve Maldonado and his creativity. He's the one that's the brain behind our video that we will be sharing with our new staff members as well as our principals. So our principals will be given this video so that they can present it to their staff members as they're beginning of welcoming them back to our school year. And so we're really excited about that. If you'll go ahead and go on. Well, we have 549 staff members in our district. We had 36 resignations and 18 retirements, which was a total of 54. So at this time, our vacancies, we have a total of 49 vacancies. But I want you to know we do have 43 new employees, which means we had 14 existing positions that we still needed to fill. Meaning we had 35 new staffing requests, and which includes CTE. It includes some needs that we looked at the district as far as other positions that needed to be included. We looked at numbers. We're still looking at numbers daily, so my next staffing request may have a high number of vacancies, but it's only because it's evolving with the increased population that we're finding out with our district registration. And so I'm really excited. I don't like to see a high vacancy number because it seems that we're not filling those positions, but it's on the contrary. It's because we do have a need and our students are coming back. And so we're having to increase our staffing. So if you'll go to the next one. And so I did a comparison of other district vacancies. I looked at APS. They have a total of 590 vacancies. Rio Rancho has 60, and McKinley County did not get back to me with their vacancies, so I couldn't present that. And so we do want to look at a comparison and how well are we doing compared to other districts. That's something that I constantly look at and see if there's some efforts that our other counterparts are using that we may not be offering in our district. And so I want to give you a little comparison. If you look at the secondary vacancy, and you did have this handout in your packet. So GHS has one certified opening, and that's ROTC. And I do want to indicate with ROTC, we are in a grace period of this year. We've extensively advertised nationwide through various venues, trying to get a officer here to meet the needs of our and the interest of our students with ROTC, and it's been unsuccessful. We've looked at Albuquerque, they're in the same situation, looking for some officers for their ROTC program. And so I did want to indicate that this is our grace period. If we do not fill that position within this year, there could be a possibility of a program being reevaluated. And so so if you'll see that GHS has one certified position open, early college is fully staffed. Laguna Acoma has 6 certified positions, but if you'll notice, there are some CTE positions that were included on there. I do have a recommendation on my desk that I haven't processed, so that number will go down tomorrow. We do have 3 classified positions open at Laguna, but 1 is actually pending the enrollment of a student. Blue Water, we have Los Alamitos, we have 1 certified, and then 4 classified. Of course, 1 is pending the enrollment of students. And so, go ahead.
I'm trying to match up this spreadsheet with
So if
your
you
visual.
Went down one and then shot over to the right.
I can't see with my,
Yes, sir.
even my cheaters, I still can't see.
So I organized it in the presentation as secondary campuses. And so if you'll look at Grants and then early high school, Laguna, and if you'll go to your left-hand side, down a little bit, there's Los Alamitos. So on your sheet, it's alphabetized. So I wanted to make sure our secondary campuses were on one slide.
I don't understand, you said your you have a position that's gonna be filled, but you're waiting on one student?
Yes, so we were notified about a student possibly coming to Laguna that was going to need an adult supervisor. And so that position is pending the enrollment of that student. Any other questions regarding our secondary? I'll go ahead and go over Los Alamitos. We have one certified position, SPED teacher opening. We have 4 classified, which that actually decreased 2. Today I made those calls, I fulfilled those recommendations, and they did accept those positions. So that'll be brought down to 2 today. And it's ongoing, so we are ongoing in as far as principals filling those positions. And then we'll move to the elementary campus. And so Dr. Guy, you'll go ahead and go below Laguna on your form. And we have 1 EA. So actually Blue Water is fully certified. Their certified staff is fully staffed. So we have no classroom teachers needed at Blue Water, but we do have 1 special educational assistant. And then again, that's gonna go based on 0 because we did make an internal transfer. So at this time, as of today, Blue Water is fully staffed. Cubero Elementary, all certified classroom teachers are fully staffed. We do have a half of classified opening, and they share it with Cebolleta Elementary, so that's why you see half of a position. It's our Karis EWS EA, and they do share that position with Cebolleta. And of course, we do have a cook pending enrollment. So we kept that position open because we do have an idea that enrollment is increasing daily in our district. So we have that position pending based on enrollment.
How many students do we have at Cebolleta?
So at this time, we had 213 at Cubero. And so I don't know because it's the enrollment is increasing daily. I saw some parents today that I noticed from Cubero. And so I don't have the current numbers as far as enrollment.
As far as Cebolleta is concerned?
Cebolleta?
Yes.
They have 30 at this time, and I believe there's a possibility of 3 being enrolled.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Mesa View has 3 certified openings. They have the art, a 5th grade teacher, and a counselor. We're working on the counselor position at this time, waiting for certification. And I believe an art teacher is also being recommended. All classified staff is fully staffed at Mesa View. At Milan, we have 1 certified teacher opening, and that's a 4th grade teacher opening. We have 2 classified and 1 pending, which is a custodian and 1 cook, and then of course, 1 cook pending enrollment. Mount Taylor, they're fully, actually they have 1 certified opening, and that's a counseling position. And we filled that position as of today. We did an internal transfer for that. And so they will be fully staffed with their certified staff members. We have 2 classified openings, 1 pending. We have a pre-K EA and 1 cook. Again, we're keeping that additional cook open pending enrollment. San Rafael, their staff, their certified staff, all classroom teachers are fully staffed. They do have 1 classified EA opening. Cebolleta is fully staffed as far as certified staff members, and they have 1.5 classified opening. They have an EA and then a half of the Karis that they share with Cubero. And so we do have our district opening, and if you look to your left-hand side below Cebolleta on your form, we have 3 certified staff opening, staff positions open, and 1 classified. In our special education department, we have 4 certified staff members open, fully classified as fully staffed. Our maintenance certified is fully staffed. We do have 2 classified openings. We have a plumber and a maintenance helper position open. And then transportation certified is fully staffed. We do have 7 classified, 6 bus drivers, and 1 bus driver assistant. Again, I just want you to see that we are continuing to close the gap between our district and other districts. So we do have 49 vacancies, 590 compared to 590 vacancies in APS, and Rio Rancho 60 vacancies. And once I get McKinley counties, I'll be glad to report that as well.
Okay, so you're gonna start the school year with 49 vacancies. The school started next week.
Yes, ma'am. And so out of the 49 vacancies, we have 10 classrooms that will be starting with the long-term sub if I don't get any recommendations and onboarding this week. And so when we look at the 49, it is a high number, and we're never satisfied when we have one vacancy. But with the classroom, we'll have 10 classrooms that will be starting out with a long-term sub, and 4 classrooms with an educational assistant that's in need of an educational assistant that affects the classroom.
Now, on these vacancies, have they people interviewed for them and not been accepted, or nobody's interviewing for them?
So depending on the position, such as counselors, that's a high need area. We're not having the interest or the applicants for that position. And so depending on the position, that's what it results in. So we are having people recommended. We have not turned down a recommendation. The only one that's pending is verification of a high school diploma, and that's a certified or classified position for a custodian. And once they fulfill those requirements, then we'll push that along. So as far as us turning away people, we're not turning away people, but we are being selective with our highly qualified staff members. We want the best teachers in our classrooms. As we see, it's a result with our student improvement. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Done.
I still have a few things, so just to let you know, we do have the incentives. So our advertisement efforts, I want you to know that we are exhausting those measures. We are going through our social media. We have it on GCCS websites. We have it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Indeed, Instagram. So we're hitting all those social media avenues for advertisement because we do want to advertise and attract highly qualified staff members. We also have our newspapers because we do know that there's a population that still reads the newspapers. So we are in Farmington, we're in Albuquerque Journal, we're also in Las Cruces. So the areas that have the colleges, that's where we're advertising as far as newspapers. And then of course, we're getting our billboards updated and that's being worked on currently. And the other offers that we have our incentives still. We have our sign-on, which are certified staff. We're offering $6,000 for certified staff. Our certified journeyman, $4,500. And our classified staff. So if you come on as a classified staff member, you will also receive a sign-on stipend. We also are offering an incentive to our hard to fill, our science, math, special education teachers and counselors of $5,000. And then we do have the rural stipend. So if we have those areas that are in need, as you'll see, Cebueta gets a rural stipend. All employees that are staffed there receive the stipend, as well as Laguna Middle School and High School, Cubero, and Blue Water. And so we're still continuing all of our efforts as far as attracting employees to our district.
Mr. Pettis, last words?
I just think it's important to, as we talk about this, put it in a good perspective. I think, it's, Ms. Hunt, Daly, when you said it's a lot of positions, it is. But I think compared to last year at this time, we're in a better place. So we're doing much better in that sense. I asked Lisa if she could please look at some comparisons with other districts to give us that perspective as well. So I think I don't want the board to have any concern that we have any empty classrooms without a teacher. I think the subs that we do have starting those few classrooms that don't have a teacher, we're being very selective about those subs as well. And some of the subs, for example, are subs that are actually working, they're either retired teacher or working their way towards a teaching certificate. So there's some good people in the classrooms that are to take care of the kids.
And out of those 10 openings, Ms. Daly, we have 5 H-1Bs that are being processed. So they're also being processed and coming in. And so they might not start the school year, but they will be here within a month or two. So we just need to have that. So that number, as far as the classroom, it's dropped, but I want to give you a realistic number of when we start on August 11th. It'll be 10, but that should decrease by 5. It is decreased by 5. We just don't have that teacher here at this time.
My concern is I'm getting a lot of feedback from the community that are not enrolling their students at Laguna Acma because there's permanent subs. And I can't assure them that there aren't any, so that they keep their students there, but they're not enrolling them and they're sending them elsewhere. Because the feedback is that there's permanent subs. There's also feedback that those that have applied haven't gotten any kind of indication whether they received notification that they were not hired or that somebody else filled a position. Nobody's written to them, called them. I, in fact, just got a text that said, no, nobody's gotten to answer me back yet. So that's
And that was an applicant that applied for a Laguna Acma position?
both Acma, Laguna Acma, and it's either Cabero or Cebolleta.
I will be more than happy to look into that and take care of that.
Any comments, Mr. Ortiz?
No.
Thank you. Let's continue on. You did a good job presenting.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, the effort. The reality is what it is. Yes. Continue on.
Mr. President, board members, action items, first action item is acceptance of the resignation of board member and the declaration of vacancy on the Board of Education. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. President.
Take a look. This is acceptance of, is there a motion to accept the resignation of the board member and to declare a vacancy on the Board of Education as presented?
So moved.
So moved by Richard Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ron Ortiz for resignation and vacancy on the Board of Education as presented. Motion call for roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Yes, motion carries. Let's continue on, Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, board, the next item is a consideration and approval of process to fill the board vacancy. And I'll turn that over to you, Mr. President.
Board members, the process is in the packet.
So there's no B, or B is part of A? On the
A,
action items, you have,
B is consideration of the process.
mine has education AS
I'm not-
action item on the agenda.
Action item A is resignation and vacancy.
And declare a declaration of vacancy.
Declaration of vacancy on the Board of Education.
Now look at B, B.
B,
Ms. Typo,
consideration and approval of process to fill board vacancy.
Yours is different than mine.
mine says education as.
What does yours say, Richard?
Mine says B, consideration and approval of process to fill board vacancy. Or,
Do you have a B underneath there?
no, that is B.
Yours is,
Yours is wrong.
yours is wrong. I don't know why that is, Emily, come on, you gotta get a good one. I'm gonna change it for
Hey,
you.
that was in my packet.
Okay, I have now hereby changed yours. Okay. Let's go on to the actual document. Hold on. Please. In the board packet is a 7 step process. Please look at it. This is essentially going to be the document that whoever is the applicant will need to be aware of. We are placing this on the board website so that anybody who's interested can go to and we'll tell them exactly how to do that. They'll go to the website, or they can call.
Well, they can surely they can come here and get an application.
They can get an application.
And it has to be from the same district.
Yeah.
District
Just
two,
like she's-
okay.
just like
District
they're
two.
running, Yeah.
So this is all about District Two. And the process is outlined as such. We need to need to inform them of what is required. We need to tell them what the statutes say. We need to tell them what materials they're going to use, the application form. We tell them where they're gonna get it from. They can get it here on the website, or they can get it from her. And she will, once she gets it, she will, excuse me, an email will be sent verifying receipt of the application. And I'm looking at part 3, the second bullet. They can either email it or they can bring it in.
And delivery.
And it tells when, August 16th. So keep in mind the dates when we're doing this. We have a 45-day period
Starting today.
starting today,
Yeah.
45 days. But they have till noon on August 16th to turn in their application,
And it's for the remainder of her term.
the term.
No, I don't think so. I think it's to the next election.
Be put on there.
I think it'll be till like your and our term, yours and my term next in 2 years. I don't think it's to fulfill the rest of her term. Usually when there's a interim like that or somebody moved in, it is to the next election.
She would just, those would just be put on the special, like,
Well,
And then whoever would have to run for that seat after. And the reason I'm going with this
okay,
is when Earl Chavis died, they appointed Joel Stewart. And he was only on there for 1.5 years, and then he had to run again. Now, I'm for sure not the law or anything, but that's how it used to be. It used to be to the next election period. And then they had to run.
hold on a second.
So I don't know the answer. I
I'll
think-
get you the answer.
I would think that would skew the term, because then if they just ran, they would only serve 2 years and then another election for that
Then they would
district.
have to, then they had, the way it used to be, then they'd have to run again. But an appointed member got to fill the term to the next election period, which is within 2 years usually.
Let me see.
Get the legal.
I never thought about that.
That's how,
Yeah.
I know that's how it used to be. Now times may have changed, and I'm for sure not the one that is making the decision on that. But I know when Board Member Stewart got on there, he had to run again at the next election.
I always assumed it was just the fulfillment of that.
No,
But that's an
sure.
interesting thought. Yeah.
Let's get the,
Hold on, I'm looking.
oh, please.
And the reason I'm taking a long time, because I cannot see this very well.
Push your computer further away.
Well,
I'm just teasing. I just
can
want
do
my
whatever,
first
and
17
it
or
still
17,
won't,
so. That's why I'm keeping mine over there.
Yes, the vacancy, the person who is appointed, will that person, what is the length of that person's appointment? I'm gonna put you on speaker, if you don't mind. Mr. Sanchez, would you repeat it again? What is the length of the term what is the length of the appointment?
Whatever's left in Ms. Lundstrom's term.
So it's changed.
It's changed. So,
But they have to run in that place.
okay, so we appoint on that date, whenever it is, say September 6th, and they will fill that position until the term is ended.
Yeah.
Okay,
Whenever Ms. Lundstrom, I don't know what staggered she was on, but
okay.
I imagine she's pretty much done a year of her time yet, or not
This
yet?
is, she's only been 6 months,
She's
The
with Ron
person
Don.
will finish Ms. Lundstrom's term.
3.5 years. Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
And we can't change that or that?
No,
the
that's it,
policy?
that's,
Okay.
and I didn't see it.
It's
I
good to
can't see
know,
it.
because it's changed in the
Yeah.
last, it's been 12 years ago.
I didn't realize that. I didn't know he got on like that. Let me get my other, these are the real magnifiers. I wish I had cataracts and I'd have one glasses. Okay, so let's go back to this. They submit a letter of interest, okay? And they also provide a resume. Provide certified documentation, reporting, residency. And they must complete that. And if there's any information that she's not able to fill, why then they'll contact me. Timeline for candidate selection is August 2 to August 16. Okay, I'm on the second page. Part V5, review period. That's the internal review. Time is from August 17th to August 18th. So we got it to take time to look over the applications to make sure that they're valid. Then on August 19th, we will notify the candidates. In your packet, in the front is this. That's the checklist that will be used. Okay? So it isn't just ballparking it. This will have to be completed to assure ourselves and to assure them that we have a process that proceeds through all the criteria. So that is the form that will be used. And August 19th, is that a Friday? Okay, it's on a Friday. Then part 7, public review and comments period, Friday, August 19th to August 26th. These are not cast in stone. So I don't have, if you guys want to take a look at that calendar yourself to see whether or not that seems to be reasonable, or if you'd like to consider changing it, we can talk about that tonight.
So is that on, 5, 6, 7, so is that public, like we host our public comment, or is there a limited time that they can speak, or?
We'll get to it. The completed applications eligible will be online. So those who completed, we will generate an electronic version of it. We'll redact some of the information that we don't believe that the public should know. And it'll be available for the public to look at and for us to look at. The public can mail comments to the district email at public forum. So there will be a special, one moment, please. Yes. Wait, one moment, please.
You were right.
Mr. Sanchez.
Yes. Sorry, everyone, I need to clarify. I went back to the statute to make sure. It says a qualified elector appointed to fill a vacancy occurring in a membership of the local school board shall hold that office until the next regular school district election, when an election shall be held to fill the vacancy for the unexpired term. So whoever gets appointed, they gotta run in the next election.
I'm
For
gonna,
how many years? Or is
I
it?
will put that into the application here. So I will revise that section so that it would include that statement. Okay, Mr. Sanchez, would you send me a language of that sort so I can include that into the into our little application?
Can I ask him a question?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Mr. Sanchez, this is Ms. Staley. So so the person runs and wins and only fulfills it for the remainder, oh no, she has to, when's your next election? In a year and a half?
Couple of years.
For a year and a half.
For a year and a half, and then, so it'll be Ron's turn to run again. And so is that going to be for 4 years or is it going to be for 2 years?
Two. See, it says if they will hold the office until the next regular election, and then the election shall be held to fill the vacancy for the unexpired term.
Okay. Otherwise, it would.
In other words,
screw the-
District Two has to stay in the same rotation.
Yes, that was my concern. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
so please send me a new email that includes that language and we'll incorporate that in there.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
You have a good memory.
Okay. We owe you. So this is, I've not done this before. You apparently had.
I have not. I just came in at that election.
Okay. So, and so did he at that, about that same time. So,
Well, he was appointed before me,
okay,
a year or so, and then he had to run with me. But he only ran for 2 years.
Okay.
And then he got back on his staggered.
on the staggered.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. We are allowing the public to communicate with you. We're allowing the public to communicate to that email address. We are asked that you look at that public forum and see what kind of comments they're making. Because the public needs to have an opportunity to communicate their 2 cents worth on this position, okay? So therefore, we have your email address and we have your phone number out there. Take a look at it to make sure it's correct. And their call with you is confidential. You will,
And then we have a public forum as well.
then there's gonna be a public forum. That's on Tuesday, August 26th, 5 PM. Is that correct? Is it a Tuesday, August 26th?
No, that's a Friday.
Friday, so let's change that.
Well, I can't be here on that Friday, I promise
So,
you.
but we can Zoom it.
Oh, yeah.
Is that okay?
Depends on where I'll be. Hold on.
Sometimes you
Well,
get
can you
kicked off.
tell the airline that if you're in, you want to Zoom?
August 26th, let me look here.
Is that Friday,
Well,
12:30?
we can also record it
You can.
and let you take a look at it, okay? So that's one change we'll need to make. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. It's a Friday, August 20. Now,
I mean, why couldn't we move that to
we could move it to any other day.
Wednesday, August 24th? Where I'll for sure be here. Or Tuesday, August 23rd.
We will have that form here,
Board
I
meeting?
would imagine.
We don't.
We don't.
We would have the form here in the building, and they would come. And we would hear them, the public would hear them. It would also be on Zoom. And
We can't move it to, because the
16th.
the review comments period is up to the 26th. I can zoom in.
Okay.
I may be in a loud place with headphones on, but I'll zoom in.
So that's a regular board meeting or a public forum board meeting?
It's a special meeting.
It's special meeting?
We're going to be in attendance physically, or if we're going to participate, then we will consider that a special board meeting and we will, so, do the usual.
5:30?
Yeah,
So if it's on the 23rd, is there any problem with having the public forum at the same time as the
Well,
public comments?
It can't be on the 23rd because up here we have public review and comments period, August 19th through the 26th.
we can change that. This is ours. What's your pleasure, board members?
How many days are we giving them right there?
We're giving them to the 16th to apply. So let's move that, let's do the public review and comments from the 17th to the 23rd, and let's have the meeting on the 23rd. And I'll for sure be here.
So we're looking at part 7, public review. We're gonna change that to Wednesday, August 16th,
17th,
17th? I don't have a calendar here.
yes.
17th.
No, the regular
Make it Tuesday, August, or the 22nd. So we're gonna be getting comments all the way up to the 26th while we're sitting here.
No, that's okay.
We will still be getting comments. I would guarantee you.
So let's do the public review and comments period from Wednesday, the 17th to Monday, the 22nd.
Yeah, it's good. I like
And then
that.
let's have that special meeting on Tuesday, the
Okay,
23rd,
let's go back again. I got, is it Wednesday, the what?
the 17th
17th to
to Monday, the 22nd.
22nd. Okay,
And then we'll have that special board meeting on the 23rd.
and the special board meeting, the special community meeting.
Yep.
On the 23rd. And is that on a, what Tuesday is it? Tuesday?
So that'll just be our 3rd board meeting this month.
All set?
It's great with me. I appreciate you.
Okay.
changing that so I can be here.
So when we vote on this, we're voting on the changes. And so you're responsible for helping me remember what changes we made. Okay. Final selection. Is that our regular board meeting on the 6th? Okay. If it's not, then we'd have to have a special board meeting to do that.
So I just have a question. I don't know how that turns out with 4 of us. I mean, because it's just us 4 that vote, correct?
Yes.
Can't tie.
So I mean, what happens if
Yeah.
you tie? I don't foresee that. I'm just curious at how that, we arm wrestle for the last one or?
Well, let's think about it. If a motion is made, my expectation is that there will be a motion made for a candidate. And there will be a second. So there'll be 2 votes there.
Okay, so my suggestion on that is why don't we have a executive session prior where we can all discuss it?
Does this qualify for?
I don't know whether it qualifies for a space in executive session. We can find out.
Just a thought.
It's something we don't have to decide on tonight. All we're doing tonight is setting the date.
Yep,
we're going
that's,
to
and
do
that's
it.
fine. I don't mean to
Then
hold us up.
I'll get that clarified, just the process of, but anyway, so we get the second is made. And then we vote on that.
And I hope it's 4-0. I'm not foreseeing anything like
Sure.
that. I'm just, what ifs is all
So
I'm
what ifs,
trying
and
to do, yeah.
I take the roll call. And then we'll vote. And we get 3, and that's done. If it's 2 and then 2, then that means that someone else will have to vote on another person.
Can't be anybody else.
Yes,
That's my point.
nobody. So do we come?
That's 4.
Yeah, say you have 3 eligible candidates. Or 4 eligible candidates.
And we each vote for our own.
So so a motion is made for one of them. And there's no majority vote. Then could we not then have another motion for,
You can, but I mean, it's the same thing. You could go one, 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 one. It could go four different ways. That's all I'm saying is maybe we ought to have an executive session
Well-
before where we're legally talking about it. in a
let me
forum.
find that out.
Okay.
But in the end, if there is no decision made by the board, it's then given to the Public Education Department, Secretary Steinhaus. And that, and he will make an appointment. We also could, it also says that no later than September 16th. That's trying to give us some wiggle room. Say we end up with not having made a
And we
decision.
may only have one applicant. I'm not saying that. I'm just, like I said, what if in a little bit. Find out if we could have a
Yeah.
executive session. That way us four can discuss it we're not breaking any rules that way. We can have a discussion. We can, or we can discuss it in this public forum, but, which is also fine with me, but.
Okay. So far, the timeline has changed from the public review is from Wednesday, August 17th to Monday, the 22nd. Then we changed the community meeting to August 23rd, okay? And we will, right now, are scheduled to vote on an individual on September 6th. And we have some what-if questions that need to be resolved. So I'll get back with our attorney and figure out, well, number one, can we have, what if this happens? And then secondly, can we have an executive session to discuss this? Now, what were you thinking we would discuss in the executive session?
I just know that if there's gonna be a vote.
That it's not 2-2, that we come up with a
We
consensus.
come up with a consensus. That's all.
So you want to,
You don't take any action, executive session, there's no action to be taken. I just sought a discussion. And hopefully it never comes to that. And I didn't mean to make a problem that it's not there and it shouldn't be there. But it
Okay.
could be.
could be? Okay. Find that out.
Find out from Andy.
Okay, point of clarification, Mr. President. So, on the actual vote, it's at 5 o'clock. Wouldn't it be wouldn't it be an action item on the regular agenda? Or- So it'd be 5:30?
Well, I can do it at 5:30.
Because that's a regular board
It's
meeting.
fine.
Right.
So we change that. It'll be 5:30 PM. And the person begins right then, just like we do.
Well,
We, of course,
swear
We gotta
in
be
and stuff
sworn
again,
in,
but-
yeah.
sworn in. Upon being sworn in, and then we proceed with the meeting.
So let's make sure we get a hold of, is it gonna be the judge? Come swear her in, swear him in, swear them in.
You go. We got it. Okay. Good. Anything else on this? Take a peek at it. Any last thoughts on it? No. Sando is gonna be key on this. The review of the applications, Mr. Pettis, I'm not going to do that. That will need to be done by
HR?
HR. That means you will need to take a look at the checklist. And if need be, you can contact our attorney, Mr. Sanchez, to ensure you're clear on how to complete this. What are the, what is the documentation that you're going to look at and how to make a decision on it? Some of that they'll have to themselves obtain from the county. Order. If they don't have their card, they can contact the county and they can then give you that. Okay. So. And the checklist you'll have here. I have a question on the checklist. Guys, let's go to the application itself. It's pretty lengthy. And that's because we're having to do things that ordinarily a candidate would go ahead and do it anyway. But we don't have that luxury, so we have to outline what it is that person needs to turn in to verify. So this is the application that they're going to receive. This application will be online, but it also will be in the office of the superintendent. Planning store. It must be complete. They must realize that number 5, that they are going to be subjected to the typical criminal background investigation. And turn them all in at that time. Now, is there any date? Do we need to change any dates on this one?
I don't think so, because it's still August 16th.
Take a look at that to make sure. And August 16th is a board meeting night. Is it not?
It's not. Yes, it is. But they just need to turn in their application by that day.
Yeah. Originally, it was at 4 o'clock, but I figured that might be kind of a busy period, so I just felt that it'd be better if they turned it in at noon. That way she'll have a little time to get it organized and put it. And you two would need to meet together at that time so that you will know what she has received. Okay. There may be some forms that application may have been turned in beforehand.
Okay.
So you'll maintain a log, and as soon as you get one, you will email that individual. So a lot of this information is as though they were a candidate and they would typically say, well, I got this degree, I got this kind of training, kind of give me background. So that's what that information is there for. It's to a great extent what the public would be interested in. What kind of licensures do you have? Anything? Employment history, if there's any history that they wish to provide to us on that. Criminal history affidavit. That's pretty lengthy. Have you seen this before, Lisa?
No, sir.
Then once contact the attorney to make sure you understand how this is to be completed.
Do we have a criminal affidavit?
This is the actual form that we have to use.
Yes, I think so.
That's what I was gonna ask, who would be responsible for that?
They don't have any licenses.
I think we do that.
That's not,
Criminal affidavit.
that's just information.
Yeah, none of it's
All they
required.
need to do is the basic legal requirements. Live in the district. Be able to verify that they live in the district. That's the key point. Just like you, when you completed and you applied to be a candidate, you went to the office here. And whatever information they requested of you, they had to, and you had to verify that you lived in that district.
So I understand that, so that would deter them, because if I saw this before I applied or ran for the board, I say, oh, I don't have any of that, so I'm not running.
So maybe I need to explain to them that on the form that this is just background information. And it does not, the basic minimum requirements are these things, and that's it. Okay. Now, how do you feel about the criminal history affidavit?
What do you want to say?
Now, do you remember back, because usually employees, did we not, in your time as a board member, ever have to go through that process?
Never.
Or a background. We've never conducted background checks on board members.
Because he's not an employee. He's an elected official or appointed official, this one.
With kids, that's mostly the reason why they do background checks.
So when you have a background check for anyone that's working or will be around students, they have to be unsupervised with students. So at any time anyone is unsupervised with students, then they must conduct a background check. And so I guess the question would be, are any of you unsupervised, or would our new member be unsupervised?
I guess my question is, where did we get this process? From the state?
No, I asked Andy to put together a template for us.
See, my concern is if they just,
There is no
no,
official
Yeah.
state.
so they put in their job that they were a pole dancer. They were gonna disclose them, or we're not gonna include them. I mean, they're leaving them a lot of information or a lot of.
I mean, I guess my concern here is we're asking them like they're applying for a job. I don't know if that's fair. We're elected by constituents, and this one is not to be elected. It's he or she is appointed by us. Are we getting in the weeds way too much right there? Is my concern. Please join it.
I agree because.
If I'm wrong, you're.
I agree because, you know, us four are gonna put somebody that we know real well, that doesn't have to go through.
I mean, I don't want us to put so much on there that we don't have a
Have to,
viable candidate.
exactly.
I have nobody here.
Well, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't we put on there, he or she must live in the district?
Pretty much.
That's pretty much it. I mean, that's, to go run, you have to prove that you live in the district. You have to show voter registration. Basically to prove that, you have to prove that you're a citizen. Okay.
And it doesn't say that you don't have, you cannot have a criminal history. I mean, you know, other districts, they have board members that been incarcerated, but they still elect them because they don't have anybody else.
Well, would you want to know that as a board member, that you've got a fellow board member has been incarcerated?
I don't know if it's our business or not.
Mr.
Why isn't it the public's business to know those things?
Nobody's asked for mine.
I mean, isn't it not true that when anybody who's a nominee for a political position could be subjected to scrutiny?
Could be, but is it our job to subject him to that scrutiny?
Him or her,
I mean,
or embezzlement, or.
Like I said, has anybody asked for your criminal history, Ron?
No.
Really?
Never.
Never.
And we're elected officials. This is an appointed position for a year and a half I mean, why would we? I mean,
But we put ourselves out there in public where your reputation and background, people find out. But here, we're not asking for it. And of course, we could get blamed, says, well, you put that criminal on the board? But it's gonna.
I'm sure we're gonna get some good applicants,
I think we're just making it too
I mean,
difficult or too
sort of thinking out
tedious.
of the box a little bit here.
Okay, let's go take a look at it's easier to look at the checklist to kind of go back over and see what we really want to have in there.
Dr.
Yes.
I think Lisa wanted to share.
Lisa?
So I know we're talking about background, and the comment was, would you like to know who you're working with? So just a reminder, with a background check, that's a confidential document, and so that is not shared. And so you'll have to determine who is going to clear that background and what are the disqualifying arrests or comments. And so I just wanted to give that information as far as who was going to clear that background. And they have to be trained by Jamalto. I'm one that clears, but I clear for employment, and the criteria is completely different based on employment and public officials, and what will be the disqualifying arrest or criminal activity that you will disqualify a candidate for.
And then do we vote on that? Well, I'm serious. It's a confidential document. We're not all privy to it.
Well, tonight, we're gonna vote on an application process and its contents.
So the background, usually when a candidate comes, I either clear them or do not clear them, and I do not divulge any information.
I just have to think about the complexity sometimes if it's a traffic violation versus a more stronger violation.
Molestation or
And then the
child.
length of time, was that 2 years ago or was it 20 years ago? And that's also considered in that decision making.
And they have to provide court documents, they have to provide a narrative,
Does that disqualify?
I don't know, I've had a speeding ticket for 107 and 55. Nobody asked me for that.
Well, I'm also thinking about.
Well, I'm serious, and it's nobody's business, nor is it ours on the news, the new applicant. That's about the worst thing on my record, I promise, but.
Except we can't have anybody charged with child molestation or endangerment of a child because they're gonna be working with children at one point somewhere, is it where they come to the meetings or what? That's
We don't-
I don't know.
I think you're opening a can of worms, so we don't wanna try to get back in that can.
registered and known to the
So we got another comment, Barry, if we could.
So if they are registered sex offenders, they are known to the public and people can access that.
They are anyway, right? That is public.
Yes, that's open to the public and
But is
they-
that a disqualifier for being,
What would be for me?
Me too.
I mean, no, but let's say the person got on, then we found out later that this person,
Well, maybe it's our job to Google that person when we have a viable candidate. If it is public record, that is.
Yes, sir.
And
what
they-
is it disqualifying?
It is for me, and I'm one of the ones that's appointing him here.
No, what if we don't know and we find out later on that this person,
Then that's on us, I guess.
so how do we find out?
You just said,
Say it again.
a background check is it is a confidential document. They're either approved or not approved.
You won't find out through a background check. They're either cleared or not cleared. So you will not know what charge is disqualifying a candidate. But if you talked about, a sex offender, that is public knowledge and it is posted
Yeah,
for
we can
all
all look
public
that
to
up.
see.
So maybe who are candidates, if you feel that they're in question, get on that laptop and look them up, because that is all public record.
Well, we decide, like you're saying.
And it's not only that they become undesirable or the legal part is they cannot be around children. So as a board
Pretty
member,
much
we
know
are around
everybody
students.
around town, so we're gonna make a.
I'm gonna jump up here and say you gotta take the criminal history affidavit out of this application process.
Again, with the background, you will have to identify an ORI code. So our district has its specific ORI code for employment. So does the New Mexico Public Education Department. They have their own specific ORI code for licensure, and that goes straight to the entity. So if someone is coming for employment, it will come to me. So if someone registers with a different ORI code, we won't have any record. It'll go to that organization. And so if you're going to do it as a board, I'm not sure what the process is to develop your own ORI code and who would be your trained personnel to read those backgrounds and clear them and not clear them.
And still, we're not hiring them for a job. We're appointing them to a board that we're gonna get to interview them.
And any candidate could read that back and say that's none of your business and I'm not applying for a job. That's not part of my requirements to be a board member. I didn't see any requirements to be a
So
board
nobody's
member.
asked me.
I will not divulge my criminal history.
If we did that, did a criminal history and we disqualify them for the position, they could come back on us and say, well, that was none of your business.
I think you gotta take the criminal history affidavit out of there. I just think you have to.
Cause I wouldn't even wanna run, or not run, I wouldn't even wanna get appointed if I had to go through all of that.
Correct.
I mean,
Might not have any
Well, we need
applicants.
four for, be just four of us, huh?
yeah.
Well, I'm serious, and I mean, in all honesty, you can run mine any day, anytime, and but it's still nobody's business. I mean, I have nothing hiding on there, but what if you did something dumb when you were 18 and you're a good person now and you've changed? You gotta wrap that out of there. That's not our responsibility, nor is it HR's responsibility.
I've asked Mr. Sanchez if we can properly call him right now. And he said yes. So I'm gonna call him right now, and I'm gonna indicate to him that we don't feel that we're in a position to include the,
Yes, Dr. Guy.
yes, we're going through the application, the application form and all the different aspects of it.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, before we get started on just asking you some detailed questions. What are the minimum legal requirements for a person to be considered a nominee?
A qualified elector. That's the minimum requirement, is they have to be a qualified elector as determined by the county clerk's office, which is going to be, I would hope, but it is never, there's been times county clerks never did it, but it has to be more than a voter registration card. They have to prove that they have residency, and it's permanent residency in their district. And if they have not committed a felony crime, and they are a US citizen and a citizen of District 2, they can actually hold office.
Okay. First was qualified elector. Okay, we got that. That's the third item on the checklist, right? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we ask them to provide some proof that they're qualified electors, so yes.
From the county
But
clerk.
Yeah, to be a qualified elector, they have to have be able to vote in District 2, reside in District 2, and not have any of the prohibitions on holding any office, which is a felony conviction or crime.
Let's go, let's not get to that part. Physical address. They have to have evidence of their physical address being within District 2.
Not just a mailing.
Well, they, yes,
But
but only, they have to have the permanent residency be in District 2.
and how do we verify that that's the case, that it's permanent?
That's what some of the other questions are about, to make sure that you can, because it's a question of intent. It's a question of where you intend to permanently reside. In other words, I could have a house in Albuquerque, but it could be a vacation home, it could be something else. Where do I intend to permanently reside, and do I have a physical presence there? So the real question is, like I said before, it's kind of hard to look into the minds and hearts of anybody, but real issue that we've had in the past is people who have a house in Albuquerque, their kids attend school in Albuquerque, but they claim to be a resident somewhere else. I don't think that's somebody you want to consider, because it's easily challenged and then they lose that seat.
Then, once again, clarify for us how they document their permanency of their physical address, physical residency.
They're going to affirm that they have a physical address, and that's where they reside. And that's why I put in the application some of those other questions, like where do your kids go to school? Where that kind of, do you have other residencies? Do you have other houses? And where are they?
If they don't have any children, then that doesn't apply to them.
If they don't have any children.
Well, if they don't have any kids, then you're basically just relying on where they decide that they're going to say they permanently reside for the purpose of voting.
That's awfully hard, Andy, that's awfully hard to prove too, because I've known cases where, one candidate did run for a district, but that was just the mailing address.
Exactly.
The person actually resided in Albuquerque.
Yes, I know. And Gallup had a board member who actually held a state office at one point, but they lived and resided in Albuquerque because that's where their kids went to school.
I remember.
So that becomes problematic. So we're just trying to screen as best we can, but certainly we would want to ask somebody, whether it's in the application or in the final interview, is where do you permanently wish to reside? Where are you going to, where is your permanent residency? Because in effect, under the law, you can be transient. You could live in Albuquerque for like the purposes of getting a master's degree, even though Grants is your home. And that type of things become an issue because we had that particular issue with a board member in Las Vegas who was residing temporarily somewhere else to go to school.
Okay, we're looking at the checklist right now. Can you pull it up on your screen? Andy?
Yes, I can. Hold on a second.
Some of these questions you have on the general, Andy, is.
Let's go over the checklist because then that will help us revise the application. Because the checklist is meant to reflect what.
Which one are you talking about? The checklist, the one that asked the question?
This one here.
Right. Okay, I pulled it up.
Okay. Board members, the legal minimum requirements are the voter registration.
Be a qualified elector, and permanently can reside within the district.
So,
Go ahead.
so being a qualified elector means you have no felony warrants or have never been convicted of a felony. For sure, if you've been convicted of a felony, you can't be a qualified elector. That should be enough right there rather than a criminal affidavit.
So, let's go through this. Do we agree that letter of interest is, we want that?
Yes.
Say yes on, what we're doing is we're going through this so we can make sure we're all in sync with what it is. So we agree that, letter of interest is okay. A resume, is that okay? Basic information that you'd want to know, because I may not know these candidates.
Yep, that's right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Asking for a resume is fine. Yeah,
Then,
absolutely.
and I'm asking the board members, if there's any, which ones do they have any, if they agree with it or whether they, have some problems with it. Certified documentation of voter registration as proof of residency in District 2 from county clerk. Is that okay, guys?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go to, and then, of course, that completed application form probably. Physical address is within the District 2 boundaries.
Yes,
They will have to indicate the address on the form.
Yep.
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, so that's okay.
I have a question on completed application form. Isn't that just like information would be provided in a resume?
No, we have an official application, right?
Oh, there,
Yeah.
okay.
There's the form.
Resumes are nice because it allows somebody to actually, if they want to tout what they think is important and something you may not have considered, they're allowed to, that opportunity.
Okay. So in the completed application form, you were asking these questions a while ago, guys, about the education and certification licenses. How do you guys feel about those?
It doesn't mean that much to me.
Neither.
You think that will show up in the resume and
Yes.
the,
It should.
It could show up in a resume if you, because resume is left to the applicant's discretion as what they want included, when they want to include it. Application form is asking for specific information you would like to have, which is something I think would be important to have, is to have every employer listed and every educational. In other words, you get a more fuller question, everybody is giving the same information. The reason why education, certification, and employment history are in there is so that if you end up with more than one applicant, you could distinguish between the two as to what you think would be best qualified. I would imagine somebody who has an educational education background that's more suited towards public education might win out somebody who has a technical background.
That's fine.
do you want to have the box like that, or you want them just to make it general?
No, that's fine. The box like that. They don't have to. They don't have an education, they can leave it blank.
That's it.
Okay, so it's okay if they have the education in there, this one, Ron?
I'm okay. I'm okay with it or without it.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so-
Me too.
So are we, Mr. President, just food for thought? If you're throwing in like licensure, education and things like that, are you assuming that, say somebody at the doctorate in education is a better board candidate than someone with an associate's degree? I know it sounds facetious, but
No, but that's where I am.
That's all.
The best person gets it, not the,
Unless one of us four decide that may be important.
that's right. But does it need to be on there, and can you ask that in the interview?
You can ask those questions.
Right. But I don't want to deter somebody that maybe doesn't have a grand education.
So why not just say to them, provide any, instead of doing the boxes, necessarily just provide any information you desire on your educational and your any certification that you so desire to fill out. It's an option.
Well, a resume does that. It asks for your education and it
It
asks for your
doesn't,
employment history.
we don't ask them, we don't,
Okay, whenever you do a resume, there's a section right there that says education and it tells you when, you tell them when
we
you
don't have
graduated.
a resume form.
Oh, well, that would suffice all this stuff that we're talking about. If we just ask them to submit a resume. And we don't have to get into the distinct qualifications of licensors. and
Okay,
stuff
so
like that.
we are asking to present a resume, current resume.
Yes.
So it's fine with me if we take certification and education out of there, and if they decide to put it in their resume, it's in there, and if we decide to ask them in an interview, that's fine too. But it doesn't have to be a pre-requirement to. I just don't want to run any applicants off, any good applicants off is my biggest worry. I mean, not one of my voters asked me what my education background was. And it's not strong.
I was gonna say, what is it?
Dr. Guy, if it may, this is, you want to have some sort of structure in terms that you get the same information from everybody. It's not intrusive, it's basic, and this is an official public service position. This is somebody who is, going to be, the constituency of District 2 is going to be wanting to look to this person. So if it's a question of it's too much, whatever, I would cut out the resume, because you may get somebody who writes a 5-page resume, you get somebody who writes a 1-page resume, and it may not be consistent or help you. So if everybody's giving the same information, that way you can distinguish between two applicants. If you have an applicant who also has a degree, for example, but it's in, it is in education versus somebody who went to school and has a degree in computer science, you might find it relevant to have somebody who knows something about education. So that's the way you can distinguish between candidates. It's just to have the same information so that you guys can figure out or determine from what you feel is the best qualified person to sit on the board. Because the fact of the matter is you have to screen because there isn't an election process by which somebody's opponent would have been, this person doesn't know anything about public education, I do, and they ran for office and got the most votes.
What do you guys think a resume would typically consist of?
Oh, that's up to whoever's writing it. He's right.
What
I've
do you
seen
think?
some big ones. I've seen some, and I would have a hard time writing a resume because I'm not applying for a job. And neither are they. They're applying for they're trying to get on a position on a board. And if, again, if I was to put a resume down, I put 18 years of work in the world of rodeo. Does that make me a better board member? No, but it does. I think I'm a good board member because I care about the students of our district, and I want to try to do what's right every time. So me looking on if you were to look at me on a resume for a board of education, it probably wouldn't be that strong. But I think I mean, if you want to talk about my history as a board member, I think it's as strong as any. So to me, a resume is, any of that's irrelevant. I want to vote for the best candidate. I'm going to put the best candidate I think that's going to do the
How
best
do you
for
know
these
that they're
students.
the best candidate?
We're going to interview them. That's part of this deal. We're going to sit down and interview all of them.
At that public community meeting, right? But we need to be consistent. That means we all need to be in some degree of agreement about what information we seek to desire in those interviews.
Yeah, but your desire might be different than Ron's desire, might be different than Emily's, it might be different.
So
than mine.
what happens here, though, is this is giving us some consistent information.
I'm not anti that
Yeah.
at all. I'm just trying to be
It's okay. I understand.
objective to what Andy said.
So could we,
Dr. Guy, to address Mr. Jones's issues, I understand what he's talking about. Let me just briefly give you the rundown of the horror stories. One school district brought in somebody and appointed somebody, and they had a felony conviction in their past that made them unqualified. So they had to actually be removed by the Attorney General's office from the office. And the board gets blamed for putting them on the board in the first place, because the person, once the felony conviction everybody knew about it, that person refused to resign. The other thing, so they were a qualified elector, they weren't a qualified elector, that means everything that person voted on was void. The issue we had with Gallup is we had a person who obviously lived in Albuquerque. That was the problem. And then everybody in the public wanted the board to remove that person, and you don't have the ability to remove the person. That's one of the horror stories we're dealing with here, is once you appoint somebody and they have a crime against a child or something you didn't find out about before you appointed them, they can only be removed by recall, quo warranto, or by the Attorney General, by bringing a legal action. So the best screening is, I do not wish to have created something that would be too intrusive and that scared people away. But at the same time, you have to know a little bit about that person for you to appoint them to an office, an elected office that they did not run for and did not have any public scrutiny over. And the only thing I'm concerned about as legal counsel is if something happens with the person you appointed and they ended up not being a qualified elector or having a background that the public can't tolerate, is that they're going to blame you because the four of you voted that person in. And I'm just trying to avoid that. So maybe, if you guys want to cut it down, but I would still recommend that you guys do what you can to do a screening of that person, so you don't get caught from they don't even live here to those horror stories of, and then there was a felony conviction that we never knew about, or even worse in these times, some sort of event that happened in the past in which this person has a crime against a child, even if it's a misdemeanor.
Now, if they fill out an application, then who verifies the information on their application?
The HR department.
so Could we not state in the section that says provide a current resume that it would stipulate some of the basic information that we desire?
That's okay.
Such as,
Work background, education, certifications.
let's see, say it again?
Work background, education background.
Yes,
Any
references.
certifications you may have.
Okay.
That's about all I can think of you could ask for in the resume part.
They usually references.
You can ask for references.
So what I'm suggesting is that in the resume that they would include this information on education and any licensure. That would enable us to do the same thing. Is that acceptable?
It's either they could exclude it from a resume, they could exclude it from an employment application. Put it down, so does it really matter which one?
Well, we need to,
Can we
I think we
use-
need to say what we desire for them to tell us. We can either do it in this form that we have here, with the boxes, or we can state it in that they would need to include that information in the resume, so we would see it. We're the ones who are asking that question. So we can do that. So I was just writing it down is that the provider current resume that would include your work history, your educational background, and any certification or licensures. Okay? So that's work, education, any certification. Because I don't know all of, not being from District 2, I probably don't know a lot of the candidates. There may be some that I know, but I don't know. If there's 3 or 4, then I may not know all of them. So I would want, as a person who's not a resident of this area, would want to, I'd be curious about those things. Not only would I want to see it in print, but I'd also would want to ask them those questions when it comes time. But I'd like to see that information beforehand. You may know some of these candidates if you are in this area, live in this area. But those of us who don't live in this area, we don't know who they are. So it's important for us to have that information be in print and available to us before we have that meeting on the, whatever date that was. So that's what I'm thinking is that we would do, is we'd modify that and ensure that the resume would include that information. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, now, the one that we were really concerned about was the criminal affidavit business. We have a form here that you suggested could be used. We had questions about how best to approach that. And so we're concerned about how that can be done. We had a conversation with HR, Lisa here, and about how she does that. And so we need to make sure we're clear on that. I believe we're not quite in favor of using that form or question how best to approach that.
Well, I think that if you're uncomfortable and you think that this is gonna scare people away, I think you could trim it down. It's 5 questions. But I do think that I do recommend that you do make some inquiry to verify they don't have a felony conviction, because that makes them a qualified elector, which is something that is minimally required. And it would behoove to know if there has been any crime, whether it's misdemeanor or otherwise, that has to do or relates to a child. Seems to be the minimum.
Okay, so Andy, our question is that who quantifies that? HR? And they just say they're qualified or not qualified? Because I know this is a confidential document. I don't think it's readily available to each board member, correct?
It is available to each board member, and it can be verified, or it's gonna be, primarily it will be verified through, if we need to make an inquiry of law enforcement, if I'm not sure we do, is that also part of this is they get fingerprinted. So if what you will get back in a fingerprint will be charges and convictions. So if you want to, I guess if you want to, at a minimum, is just make sure they get fingerprinted and you get an FBI report back. The thing about it is the FBI report will not give you everything. Sometimes state stuff is left out, certainly tribal stuff is left out.
So that'd be our question here, I think, is
So
which,
really, we're asking them to make an affidavit so that if something happens and they have lied, well, if we catch it before the appointment, we can take the application, and if it's afterwards, it gives the basis for a quo warranto, which is a legal means by which the person can be removed from office.
if we do a background check, we need to know which one, because I know that our HR
If you do a
department.
background check, the only problem that with background checks is sometimes tribal entities do not go into that same system, and sometimes states don't, some counties don't do it or don't do it in a timely fashion. But everybody gets fingerprinted if you're around a kid, so I think that whoever applies should be subject to fingerprinting, and you should consider what you get back from that.
So for clarification, we do two or three different types. So two different types of background checks and printing. So the question that we get here is who would do that? Would it be what system do we go with?
You guys would decide which system you would go. I would certainly get the fingerprint FBI records are going to be probably more exhaustive, but somebody still needs to make some inquiry, especially to tribal governments.
So the two that we run, Andy, this is Lisa and HR. The two that we run is through Gemalto, and it's through state and federal. And
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Hi, Andy. So the system that I go through with the school district is Gemalto, and our ORI code is specific for school employment, so it comes back as school employment. We do run a state and federal, and so like you said, there may be some tribal entities that does not get reported on.
Exactly. So basically, we're using the affidavit as the only benefit you're going to get from an affidavit form is you're going to make sure somebody's placed on notice by completing the affidavit that they understand that there's ramifications if they lie.
Right.
So it usually works as a deterrent. Number two is that you get enough information that you can check against the FBI or whatever system you do use to verify that you don't get something that gets hit. For example, the story, the one who got the felony conviction, what it was they got convicted of a drug felony, but it went into the court record as being an abatement pending some sort of drug treatment and stuff like that. It pulled up on an FBI report, that was it. Otherwise, they would never have known about the felony conviction. So that kind of stuff works to your advantage. If you guys want to, I don't think you do run the risk that you might miss something. You could just make them not do the affidavit at all, but make them do a background check that you give for school employees and see what you get. But you may end up with somebody who may have had a issue with a tribal government or even some counties that are not in the system.
And so I'll just further this conversation. So if I get a hit, there are specific documents that I request in order to clear a potential employee. And so would that also apply in this case? And second part to that question.
No, because this isn't employment.
Okay,
So we don't have to comply, the board doesn't have to comply with the Criminal Offenders Act. In other words, did they get rehabilitated and they can do that? In this situation, it's not employment, so therefore that act doesn't apply. But this is more of an issue of, if you guys are taking the place of the electorate, the people who of District 2 and with information, then you should be applying a higher standard and also protecting the board. Again, what will be the ramifications if you actually, you're still a qualified elector if you have a misdemeanor conviction. I'm saying that if you have that information and you have two people, one person who doesn't have any criminal convictions, you have one person with a misdemeanor conviction of a crime against a child, you should appoint that person to the board.
so Andy, again, based on that information that you just gave me, I don't usually divulge that information to anyone. It's a confidential report. So when someone comes for a background, I either clear them or do not clear them.
Right.
And so how would the board determine which misdemeanor was acceptable and which was not?
Yes, they will have to do it, because again, you keep it confidential because the Criminal Offender Act requires that this stuff become confidential and the person allowed to complete the interview before this information is divulged. In other words, the act requires that a person looking for a job is given the benefit of the doubt, at least as the application process goes by paper. And you can bring it up at the interview and only at the interview. So you have to keep it confidential. In this situation, since it's not employment, it is really a political appointment, is going to be that the board will have to decide if they have a misdemeanor conviction. Like I said before, if somebody has a misdemeanor conviction for, let's just hypothetically, marijuana back in 1968 or 1972, whatever, the board may say that's not something that's going to impede somebody either being elected or being on the board. However, a possible potential crime against a child, my recommendation to the board is that person should not be the top candidate to be on the Board of Education.
And so those qualifiers will be determined once this background's taken care of, right? That's what I need to know as far as what will be qualified and not qualified. Will I be given guidance on that?
You will need to, you will probably need to put the information together, but you're not going to somebody else wanted to be on the board, but I screened them out. You probably need to at least have the board know, the board should even know screens them out.
That's my question.
We're the ones who do it. That's what he's saying. She doesn't do it.
Correct.
So so I was trained in Gemalto, Andy, and I'm not able to provide a report to anyone else. It stays in a personnel file and I don't share or divulge any of that information with anyone. And that's the training that I received, and so I'm gonna have to look that up to see how I could divulge that information if I could.
Okay, well, it depends on what the person signed for. If the applicant has given you a release or waiver to utilize that information, it's your information. Now, the system itself probably has also, you need to have a legitimate purpose for inquiring into the system, which this would be a legitimate system. I understand what you're saying. You don't want to do anything where, okay, I'm handing out confidential information. Applicants need to understand that they're going to be background checked.
Right.
And I believe the application says that you will be subject to fingerprinting and background check.
So I've also signed an agreement based on my training that I'm not able to share this with any institute or any individual, because then it would result in me not being a qualifier for our district as far as running backgrounds and clearing them.
Well, then how do you turn it over to any hiring committee when they do an interview
So,
if you can't turn it over?
so the process is as follows. They make a recommendation. Mr. Pettis either approves or denies it. The approval goes through the process. They are hired pending the background investigation. Once that background investigation is conducted, we proceed. If I do not clear them, then that employment is retracted.
Okay, well,
And so no information is given, but they did not clear their background or they cleared their background.
well, that's your process, I understand it, but the Criminal Offenders Act allows whoever's doing the interview to talk about somebody's criminal history. So if you guys have skipped that and don't do that, and Mr. Pettis makes it in terms of after everything is done, that's fine too, but obviously there's gonna have to be the release of that information to others.
So the way we cover that is we have the House Bill 128, and we, in the application, they answer those 10 questions that are mandated, and it does discuss if they've been reprimanded, suspended, any arrests with children that they were unsupervised. So we cover that in the pre-interview process.
Okay, so your preference would be, and you're gonna be, then if the fingerprinting and background check is gonna be part of this process, then what's gonna have to happen here is they're gonna have to answer at least the questions that we put in the form, and you're gonna have to say they cleared or they didn't clear.
Okay.
If that's good, if you are committed to that you cannot release information to anybody or you get kicked off the system, then you're gonna have to be the one who says, they answered the questions, I ran it, and they didn't pass.
As long as I know what the disqualifying offenses are, I can do that. Yes, sir.
Right, and we do list them in the form, which are gonna be basically crimes against children. Or harming or intentionally harming somebody else.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay, let's summarize. We basically has some degree of reluctance of addressing this issue. And so in that we ourselves personally, I don't recall us having gone through anything like this. When we filed for candidacy with the county.
Right.
So here we are, asking these private questions, controversial questions of their history. And so that's one of the things we're trying to digest, is that we never were asked those questions. And so now we're having to consider them. Am I correct, Ron?
Yes.
And so we I guess have a hard time conceiving that that person is going to seek to fill out the application, will want to do this if they see this big form. It looks pretty daunting for them. They'll call up right away and say, hey, Mr. Shambo, I don't want to fill this out. What can we ask them to fill this out? Then I'd have to go through an explanation of why they have to fill this out.
Because the four of you are taking the place of everybody who votes in District 2. And if it would have been a public election, your opponent or, a candidate's opponent may bring these things up and ask these questions. Your local media may bring these questions to bear and ask you to talk about it. Probably people who don't support you will be more than happy to volunteer any information they know or don't know about you before the election. So, in other words, you are replacing what would have been media and public scrutiny of a candidate's background for the vote we're substituting that for you four. So having, like, again, you guys can decide, hey, we don't need to know that, now that all the risk that you run is basically, is if you put somebody on the board who either is not, who ultimately turns out to be not qualified or is probably unsuitable, then you have to realize that public will most likely blame you for their appointment. And their appointment and removal from the board is not going to be as simple as rescinding an offer of employment. They're going to be sworn in by a judge and they're going to hold an office. So the scrutiny, if you guys don't feel comfortable with it, I understand. Just be aware of, do we know everything we need to know to do this, because we're giving somebody an elected office, even if for that limited period of at least a year and a half. And certainly when they run at the next election, there may be candidates who wish to talk about background and all that other stuff, and the media might do it. But if you guys feel uncomfortable with it, I understand. Do not feel compelled to have an exhaustive application if you don't want it. But realize that there have been times when it has come back and it has haunted other boards based on who they have selected to fill a vacancy.
Is it sufficient to have them only sign off on the authorization?
Yes,
On the,
absolutely.
on the, the form is 2 pages. Says the 6 questions. The first page does. And it identifies 30 different crimes. The second page of our application form has a statement that they authorize us to check their personal employment history, including without limitation, criminal arrest and all that stuff. Can we just use that?
Absolutely. I would strongly recommend that you still do a background check of your applicants.
But if we do allow them, if they do sign off on this, then it means that they are authorizing us to do that background check.
Yes, to do a fingerprinting background check. And that will have to, now you'll have to give Lisa some guidance as to, if she's the only one who receives those backgrounds, she will need sufficient guidance from the board as to what would be an issue for the board in appointment.
Okay, so.
If she's the only one who can see what comes back from the service.
Okay, board members, so what I was proposing is that instead of having the complete form there, they would just have this statement there. And then that would authorize us to proceed with the background check. Okay?
So just the form, this name, physical address,
Just this,
Number 5.
just this. Not the complete criminal history affidavit.
So people can get arrested on these charges, and charges could be dismissed when they go to court and present their case. And so that's the documentation that I ask if I get a hit and arrest. I ask for documentation, and if they could provide court documentation that that charge was dismissed, then that charge would not be counted against that employee. And so what you had mentioned is I'm not able to ask for that documentation because they're not coming for employment. Is that correct? So how would we be able to give them an opportunity to challenge the arrest if it resulted in a not guilty charge or a dismissed charge? I was looking at the DUI and the DWI because sometimes we get that. And I can ask Andy at a later time. I can get clarification later.
Okay, so there's no later. There's now.
Okay, so Andy, I was looking at the disqualifiers and I saw the last one, DUI and DWI. And so sometimes when people are arrested on those charges, they've gone to court and provided whatever evidence that they've had, and that charge was either not guilty, dismissed, which shows that they were not convicted of that charge or that arrest, because that's what I get the hit on, is any arrest that they've had. And if I'm not able to ask them for the documentation that I require potential employees, how will that candidate be able to challenge that arrest and verify that that resulted in a not guilty charge or a dismissal?
Well, in this situation, we're not gonna do the intent was not to do a full employment type screening. So if we have to refine it, we can, so it makes it easier. First of all, what we probably need to, in terms of guidance for you, would have been anybody who's got a felony conviction, they're not a qualified elector, period. So they would be disqualified. The next thing would be anybody who has even a charge, maybe not necessarily a charge, but let's say some sort of court, it's up to the board, whether it's a charge or conviction, but a crime against a child or a crime that of harming another person should probably be disqualifiers.
So what happens if they are arrested under that charge and it's dismissed? Because we know we're in a society that charges are made and then based on evidence or going to court, it results in a dismissal. So how are we going to give candidates that opportunity to show record of dismissal?
Well, if it comes that they're charged and you're talking about the background check does not show the dismissal, it shows the dismissal.
Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly.
So so that's the problem, is gonna be doing that. To me, for this situation, because in employment, we do want them to explain it. Number two, but in this situation, perhaps we don't want to go that far, but see who brings the charges. If somebody is subject to a CYFD charge, that may be something that they're gonna have to be some discussion. And how they clear it, I think is probably gonna have to be some guidance. You know, is it gonna be a complete disqualification from the board, even if you're charged, or if you yes, people are subject sometimes in bad divorces, they get falsely charged. That absolutely could occur. So yeah, there's probably gonna have to be some guidance given to you as to, can I ask this person to clear it?
Okay, as long as I get the guidance, we can proceed.
In this situation, probably DUI and stuff like that is probably not as important in terms of appointment position as it would be if they have committed a crime against a child, been charged with a crime against a child, or to harm somebody else. Somebody gets a DUI, well, I'm pretty sure there's been people who have had DUIs in the past, and it doesn't stop you from being elected. So those are probably things that we'll probably have to refine to make sure that we got it narrowed down to what the board feels is important in terms of, you know what, if we do that, this is not going to fly with the public.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Let's reflect on what we've just been hearing. And I want to put it to the board. Do you feel that we need to leave this out, or do you feel that we need to have some aspect of it remain within? Because we are actually representing District 2 and the public. We're not representing ourselves. We actually are needing to do that. So what do you guys think? How do you guys feel about incorporating this still within?
Okay, I'll put it this way. I'm okay with the background check, and I can give you my qualifications right now. I don't want any convicted felons and no crimes against children. Other than that, if they pass the background check, it's fine with me. Well, you gotta have some faith in us four too, in picking a viable candidate, and I believe that we have the capability of doing that for that district, or however you want to do it, for this school district, in District 2. I think we can make it way harder than it has to be, and I think that's where we are right now.
So convicted felons and
any misdemeanor against a child, I would say. I mean, please, I'm not that versed on criminal law.
Yeah.
But that would be the disclaimers for me, and he's right. There's people that had DUIs 50 years ago that are great people, or 5 years ago that wouldn't end it for me.
An appointed government official who had 2 DUIs.
convicted felons in crimes
And he
against
said-
children.
That would be my 2 disclaimers. That would be my 2
That's what,
qualifiers.
Emily? Do we want to still keep some aspect of this in there?
I'm thinking going back on what we expect of our teachers who cannot work with, I mean, when they fill an application, we expect more of our teachers than we're going to expect more of our board. Because teachers have to fill out this application and they can't lie, they can't say that they can't work for the school they've been convicted of. Crimes against children, I'm not sure about if they disqualify teachers.
It depends on the length of time as well. So if you have a 17-year-old and now they're 30 applying, you also consider the length of time of that last arrest and conviction. So there's a lot of factors that go into clearing someone and not clearing. And again, you have to ask the candidate that information to provide that documentation, because that does not come back on a background check. It just shows as an arrest.
So, Ron, what are your thoughts? Do you want to keep some aspect of it?
It's like I said earlier, if I was wanting this position and I had to go through all of this, I wouldn't even want the position, to be honest. I think that us 4, like Mr. Jones said earlier, can make a right decision for our district, for the District 2. I think we've taken it to another level that we shouldn't even be at this level. We should be at the level where I know some of the candidates that want to run, or not run, but want the position, that are good candidates. And I wouldn't want to make them go through this whole process, then that's going to chase them away. So I think we're in a level that we don't need to be. I think we need to be realistic on
I sure
all
don't
4
disagree.
making the decision to put the right person in. I don't know if that makes sense.
So, I'm not certain when you said all of this. Well, let's just focus on this part. Do you feel that you feel like still uncomfortable with doing any aspect of a background check?
Yes, definitely. I don't think we need to do fingerprints and backgrounds on the people that I know that are going to want the position. I mean, I know them. They've called me. And I don't even know if I should go there, but there's 2 or 3 that I know of that are good candidates, They're better than me. They're educated better than I am. Like Mr. Jones said, I mean, you don't want to look at my background. But
I'm okay with that as well. We can put it all on us 4. That's fine with me.
and I think that's where it should go on us for making the decision for the district. And I think our constituents would be happy with that.
Are you desiring just not to have a process and just have individuals apply and then we review the app? Then we have them come in and interview and then we just make a decision? Do you want any information beforehand for the board members? Because not all of the board members know all of the candidates.
I'm going to say that you do know most of them, to be honest.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
You
speaking.
might know them, but I don't know them.
Well, you want me to give you the
No,
names?
no. That's still not, that's
Yeah,
still.
you know, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, the thing is that we gotta, we don't have any idea how many, I don't hope that this is not predetermined as to who's going to apply. That's my, I have a concern about that. But there could be candidates that I may know them in some way, but I may not know them sufficiently in order for me to figure out whether that I may know one or two, but three or four I may not know. So how do I make a judgment?
I understand what you're saying, Dr. Guy. I think Ron, his concern is a lot like mine. I think we can make the process so hard that we would maybe scare off some very good candidates. Or put them on where they don't want to go through that. I don't know. I'm kind of like you, Ron. I'm glad they didn't make me do all. Not that I couldn't have passed them all, because I can, but.
What about just the first page, where it tells them, the provision of any false, incomplete, or misleading statement.
I can't hear you, you're mumbling, your mask.
Applicants are subject to verification of being a qualified elector. Finalists will be subject to criminal background investigation, including mandatory fingerprinting at the applicant's expense. Well, we should make it all right. As a condition to the Board of Education. I have read and understood the following. If they can't sign that, then there's something in their history that might preclude them from applying.
So you're saying that all they have to turn in is this?
Because we're telling them they're gonna have to do all this.
Just the application for their Board of Education, physical address, we need to verify that they actually are, what is it we said?
A qualified elector.
Certified documentation,
It says that.
qualified elector.
Applicants are subject to verification of being a qualified elector for District 2.
Well,
And if they find, and it says if the provision of any false, incomplete, or misleading statements on this application or any documents submitted with it will result in the applicant's disqualification.
so let's say that all they have to do is to fill out this first sheet, put their name down, mailing address, telephone number, email address, and then they read this part and then they sign it. And then they turn that in. And
And they
who's going to decide whether they're a qualified elector? Who's going to do that?
Doesn't the county clerk's office do that?
No, who's going to do it? Here's this form, it's given to the front office. And then they sit back and just wait to be interviewed on the 26th. Who's going to determine whether they are qualified electors?
This, in the whole application, it doesn't say who's going to do it either.
Well, we have just been saying that probably they will, human resources would do that.
Well,
So are we saying that we leave that up to her to
check the
check
boxes.
check whether or not this is correct?
I like the certified document of voter registration as proof of residence in District 2 from the county clerk. That covers a lot of bases right there.
Well, who's gonna go do that?
They have to bring it in and show us. That has to be.
So
on the
that means
check mark.
that besides this form, they're gonna have to bring something else in.
We just add
So what
that
I'm
in.
saying to you is that I gather that there's a desire not to do this whole thing. And so which part do we, so I'm just saying, for instance, that if we just have them turn this in, what else, this single sheet, what else do we want them to
I
provide?
understand what you're saying. So we need to modify the checklist is what you're basically saying.
Well, no, just
No?
not even have a checklist. Just have this.
I think we need a checklist.
About
Well,
this,
who needs the checklist? Who's
this
gonna
and
check
the,
this?
this and the criminal history affidavit. That one, as far as that. And leave out the general.
Originally, I'd said that on the application process, it said they were to turn in a resume, right? And I think we were toying with the idea of having them include in their resume, please make sure you have, your background, work background, your educational background, any certification that would be provided. Okay? So we said that. Now, so that eliminates page 2 and page 3 of the form. Then we, go ahead.
No, I'm with you. I'm just saying, okay.
Okay, then on page 4 was the whole business about the criminal history affidavit.
You could give them, this is what I'm thinking we could do. This one, and then this would be just 2, and give them that, and that's it.
So do you have any discomfort with asking them if they've been previously employed by the district?
I don't care. I don't know what the relevance is there.
I don't either, or having kids outside the district or anything.
Do you have any concern about them having relatives employed in the district?
I don't know why that's relevant either.
Any residency outside of the district?
That is relevant just on the qualified elector.
Going through, that's page 6 is the last page, okay? So from what I can tell is that it virtually eliminates most of the checklist, okay? And it goes back to just the front page, which is here. This. And that's what I'm hearing, this front page. And what else?
Plus a certified document of voter registration as proof of residency in District 2.
But I also like that, the criminal history on page 6. Or affidavit.
I don't.
Plus a certified document of,
Voter registration is proof of residency in District 2 from the county clerk. It's number 3 on our checklist. Now, on that checklist we're working on.
Your checklist, provide a letter of interest, provide current resume, provide certified documents of voter registration. Provide a physical address within the district, District 2 boundaries. I don't know provide proof of US citizenship. They've already done it if they have a document of registration to vote. The rest of it we don't even need, so you need those 1, 2, 3, 4.
the letter
5
of
them.
residence,
And then that'll cover it all.
we said,
The first 5.
the first one, letter of interest, right? Current resume, certified documentation. I'm looking at the checklist. Tell me, is there anything else?
But we're asking them on that first page, that they would have to subject to a criminal history background. So that's why I included the.
It doesn't say that on the first page. It just has this.
Yes, it does.
Where does it say that?
Yeah, it does right here, number 5.
5.
Finalists will also be subject to a criminal background investigation.
So we provide them page, I don't know, it doesn't have a page, this one.
The one that has all the detail.
So we give them that to check, and that's it, just so.
You need this, the criminal historic history.
That's what she's saying.
Yeah,
She's saying she wants this.
that one as far as this one right here. Sure, because I ran over the page.
Yeah.
Because you're asking them, you're telling them they're gonna subject to, so they're gonna ask you, well, where's the, what, do I have to fill it out myself, or do you have a form? Well, here's the form.
So, board members, what we see is that on the first page of the application has 6 parts to it. And the one we're really looking carefully at is number 5, about what it is that they're gonna be subject to verification. Are you still, or do you wish to continue to have that, board members, number 5?
It can end, as far as I'm concerned, after applicants are subject to verification of being a qualified elector for District 2.
Do we know when? So they will be subjected to a criminal background investigation.
I'm suggesting we end it after the number 2 right there. And redact the rest of that.
Applicants are subject to verification of being a qualified elector for District 2, is what he's saying.
Isn't that what you're saying too, Ron, as well?
Yes.
So we don't even bother with whether they have a criminal background or not, is what he's saying.
I, in a disagreement, I think as protectors of our children, we need to know whether or not they have crimes, offenses against children, and that criminal history, the short page one you did will suffice that. The minute they start filling it out and it asks them that question, they're gonna start filling it out, they're not qualified, they disqualify themselves.
Okay, so I have 2 board members saying that we just eliminate the criminal background investigation. Then I have you, Emily, saying that you still want to have some version of a criminal background investigation. Am I correct? So just with 3 of you saying that we're not quite in agreement on that.
I don't know, I just don't see our community who want the position are gonna have any of this criminal history, you know? I mean, I don't know, I just think we got a better community than what we're actually trying to.
I tell you what, and I can appreciate what you're saying, Emily, because I would never want to subject.
Right, me either.
And I know you wouldn't either. I just don't want to make the process so hard we run off a viable candidate.
That's it.
I don't think the pages he has on there are that indicates that.
We're still discussing this, Andy. No, we'll get back to you if we need to, okay?
That time is just going.
Sounds good. I'm over here.
If you look at it, it's very, they included the question for the criminal background check, where it does specifically ask if they have any crimes against children. That anybody that's your candidate, it's not gonna deter them because they're gonna answer no. Just like when we fill out applications as teachers and administrators, we automatically check no because if we know we do, then we're gonna say, well, shoot, I'm not qualified to do this then.
You know, I ran for different positions throughout my life, and I've never gone through a process like this. I've gone through resumes and, you know, some work history. They know that I supported the community, so I had interest in what I wanted to do. And people know you. I mean, they knew me when let's say I ran for mayor, and I mean, they chose the best one.
And
So-
Ron, I'm with you because we are, and I think we get jaded because, or get biased because I might even ever in the car going down the road because I either went to school with them, or I went to school with their kids, or I went to school with, but these two don't have that same relationship. I gotta think of it the other way. Good, am I right? I gotta think of it the other way. I wouldn't, if there was 5 applicants for your position, I probably wouldn't know 5 of them. I might know 1 or 2 of them. So I see both sides, and I agree with you. I just don't wanna make it so hard that they don't apply.
Yeah, but Board members, can we take a break for a second? Because we gotta run down that hallway and it takes a long time to get down there. So let's have a recess for a minute. Well, if someone has some coffee, they can make them. Let me give you my, for what it's worth. I think it's important that we have some basic information regarding their background that does require a focus on some of the more critical kinds of wrongdoing. And those are felony convictions and also children, abuse of children. I think we need to, I think they would agree. I think they would say, yes, I think that it's important for us to be addressing those kinds of things. So I think that's important. So we need to figure out how we can get from you guys' position to our position as to.
I can appreciate your position and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Some of this other stuff, I think we're way too much in the weeds.
So basically what we can tell her is that we're looking for only two things. Criminal felony
Felony
convictions
convictions
and any
and
or
crime against a child.
and any crimes against children.
That covers it.
How do you read that? Can we not say that at the beginning on the application?
Well, if they're gonna do a background check, we've just given her the guidelines to their thumbs up or their thumbs
So
down.
basically, that's all you would be searching for. Does that work for
Are
you?
you all right with that, Ron?
So do you give them a form for the background check or do you just?
No, they'll have to come in with their license and I will have to register them on the system. And so we will have to conduct that registration as well.
So
They
when,
will also have to go out of town. We do not have any facilities in town. They'll have to either go to Gallup or to Albuquerque to run their fingerprints.
is that what all
Yes.
employees
All
have to do?
employees do. Yes, sir.
What's the turnaround time on getting the results?
Depending on their background. Normally 24 to 48 hours, sometimes a little bit longer.
Do they have to pay for the background check fingerprints?
So if we register them under the employment, no, the district will incur that charge.
Which is $48?
$44. We don't have to run it
Okay.
through the district.
Let's run through our timeline then. Do we have to adjust the timeline to give them time to have that done?
Maybe you ought to do the final day, April or August 14th instead of the 16th.
In other words, to give them,
Give us a couple days, or give the background check a couple days.
that's what I mean, is do we need to adjust the timeline in order to give them a reasonable chance for it to be screened? Now, that means that those who you think that might be interested in this are gonna have to recognize that we're asking something that we're asking all the employees of the district. We're asking the same thing, only,
So let's move the application timeline from August 2nd to August 17th. That gives them 15 days.
does that work?
That
15
gives us
days?
a couple days before we have that meeting on the 23rd,
You're saying their application is due?
on the 17th.
But you had it
We
originally.
have it on the 19th, right? No, we have it on the what?
60.
Sixth.
Application timeline says right here, August 2nd to August 19th.
Mine's the 16th.
So we're gonna change it to August 14th.
So that's a Sunday.
Yeah, let's do it August 17th. That's
August
a Wednesday.
17th.
That still gives them 15 days.
So then the review period is going to be from,
18th, August 18th, oh no.
wait a minute. We have to review the applications to see if they meet the criteria. That's separate from
So,
background check.
so we need to move that to August 16th.
The review period.
And then the review period would still be the 17th and 18th. And we would know if they failed the background check before the meeting on the 23rd.
So the community meeting is on the 23rd.
Right.
At 5:30, okay? The notification of eligibility has to occur before then. Is that still gonna be August 19th? Because we'll need to tell them which of them are gonna be.
Well, that gives us 2 days to go over their applications. And qualify, excuse me, qualify them or not.
August 2nd, August 19th.
When they turn in the application, are they going to go straight to my office and conduct a background check?
I think so it should be when you turn your application in, you have to do it. And if we move that application date to August 16th, which is 14 days of time, which should be plenty, that is just part of the application process. Then we would have the 17th and 18th to wait for background checks. And then we would qualify them or notify them of their eligibility on the 19th.
This part here.
Is that how I want?
What's the longest,
It's different.
background to getting the results?
Sometimes a week. Sometimes a week.
Okay, sometimes a week.
Well, that gets you a week, the 16th to the 23rd.
So application period is, let's go back to the timeline. I wanna make sure. Do we have this recorded any place tonight?
Yes. It should be recorded on Zoom or in the video.
Okay, are you able to hear it? We need to make sure that you know exactly what the minutes are gonna say, because this actually needs to be done tomorrow.
So Dr. Guy, just a disclaimer, we can give them a week timeline, but it's dependent on the candidate going into town and getting those fingerprints. So once they get their fingerprints done, then it can take up to a week. So are you going to mandate candidates to go immediately from my office to Albuquerque or Gallup?
Absolutely.
So I will send them your,
I'm-
I will give them your number.
I take my
Yes,
number
sir.
off there.
See, that's why this process is.
Making it harder.
Yeah, that's just where I'm going.
Because if they,
Anyway, I'll be quiet.
And I will tell you, there's some ambiguity in that you're subject to a background check. Doesn't mean we're gonna do a background check. I'm serious. That ought to dissuade anybody that has a felony.
I think what the board wants to do is protect themselves. You need that layer of protection.
Well,
And I
yeah.
think the affidavit, unless you see some reason in the interview or whatever to do a background check, then you can actually do it. But I think just throwing it in, the 2 cents, if the affidavit should be a layer of protection for the board. It takes it off of you that you're not the guilty ones, it's the person that's lying or they've messed up, not the board. I'm just throwing it there. Instead of going through all of that with the formal background check, it seems like one option would be just doing the affidavit.
I'm okay with that.
Do you see what he's saying? That they just fill out this form. And then,
Emily, you okay with that?
Which one are we filling out?
we're back to
What we're talking
we're back to the
The
form.
criminal affidavit.
In other words, they fill it out. And it's subject to,
But that's the reason why I said that we should just have criminal history affidavit, this, and half of that, and then the front part. That's my suggestion.
okay,
Subject to.
So,
Subject to
so we give them this, the front sheet, and we give them the criminal
And we
affidavit,
go this one up to here.
right? And so it says subject to, does it mean that we're gonna?
Right. And if we have a reason to, we can at any time, and that does cover us.
We give them this part. and
Well,
then
give them the whole thing.
Yeah, the ticks are behind.
I just tell them that this is this is today's world. And that it would have them appreciate what their employees go through. Whether that make them feel any better or not.
You told them?
No.
It's leaky.
And daycare.
Oh, he's not.
Then they'll say to us, did you have to go through a background check?
He'll be here tomorrow.
We're not, the answer to that is none of us have been appointed, we're elected. So that's easy answer.
Yeah. Are we comfortable with, well, once we determine that they're eligible, from what I gathered from our attorney is that, once we appoint them, we're stuck with them.
Yeah, I'd like to just add there that if they lied on the affidavit, you're out, right?
They're out, yes.
Okay, let's see what the motion's going to say. The motion will be to approve the application process that includes page one of the current form, along with the criminal history affidavit. But shall include the various timelines.
That we have made adjustments on.
Adjusted.
Okay, so I'm gonna try it.
Go for it.
I make a motion that we adopt the application process, including page one that we have in our binders, the criminal history affidavit, and we shall adhere to the adjusted timeline.
Did you make adjustments on number 5?
No. We do not. We're just saying subject to,
Okay, got it.
to subject to.
Just making sure.
That's the motion.
That's the motion. Are you good with that, Ron? It doesn't mean we're doing a background check. They just have to fill out the criminal affidavit.
They just have to read this.
We're not subjecting them to fingerprint, we're subjecting them to, they have to sign this, fill out the criminal affidavit, which I'm fine with. We're striking the rest of that. That's the motion.
Is there a second?
I can live with it. So,
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'm waiting for it. Do you have it?
Read it again.
Okay, now follow it.
Okay, I would make a motion.
I want her to read it to see if she's got it right.
I make a motion to approve the application process, including page 1 of the current form document, along with the affidavit, but shall include, and that's where, what would include what?
And we'll adhere to the adjusted timeline.
We need to vote on this?
Okay, read it again.
Made the motion to approve the application process to include page 1 of the current form, along with
the affidavit still include
The criminal history
the
affidavit.
criminal history with the adjusted timeline.
Yeah.
Criminal history affidavit.
Yeah. Criminal history affidavit. It's recorded anyway. See, we got it recorded.
You took my front page.
Okay, hold on a minute. I'm gonna strike that motion.
It's still, yeah,
I'm gonna strike that
there's
motion.
something we're missing.
Well, no, we just have to adjust number 5 here. Finalists will also be subject to a criminal background investigation. Period. Not including mandatory fingerprint at the applicant's expense. No. They are subject to a criminal background investigation, period.
When we say 5, we also say that verification of being a qualified elector. That means, how do we know that they're a qualified elector?
They're doing
Board
that
members?
with this other,
This checklist.
with the checklist, the first 5 in the checklist.
So we're including letter of interest with signature, current resume, certified documentation of voter registration, right?
Yes, as proof of
Physical
residency.
address within the District 2 boundaries, right?
Yes.
The completed
So,
application.
And that completed application, like you said.
I'll remake the motion.
yeah, you need to state all that we are going to do.
Okay, here we go. I make a motion that we approve the application process. First of all, with an amendment to number 5 on page 1. Striking, including mandatory fingerprinting at the applicant's expense as a condition of selection of the Board of Education. That number 5 will end as a period after criminal background investigation. Also to include letter of interest, current resume, certified documentation of voter registration as proof of residency in District 2 from the county clerk, a completed application, a physical address within District 2 boundaries, and a filled out criminal affidavit to adhere to the adjusted timeline. There's my motion.
It's recorded, so you got it.
I'm sorry, Marie. I'm sorry we keep changing it.
Once again, the timeline is, and let's make sure we know the timeline, August 2, August 6th, application period is August 2
August 16th.
to 16th, okay, 12 noon. Review period is still 17 to the 18th,
Correct. Notification
Notification will
eligibility on the 19th,
will be the 19th.
but Board of Education community meeting scheduled for 5:30, that is August 23rd.
That's gone further, August 23rd. The public review and comments, Friday, August 19th to August what?
22nd.
22nd. 17th to the 22nd, yes. Completed applications will be, what's the point? There's nothing much to the application. Well, no, there would be. There'll be the letter of interest,
Yep.
resume, and the public forum business will keep on, and then all the information about us. And then the 23rd is the community meeting
Yes,
at 5:30.
yes.
And then that's where we will ask questions.
Correct.
To fill in whatever gaps. And we hear comments from the public,
They're welcome to that meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a public forum.
public forum. It's not, it's more of a forum. And then 5:30, September 6th. Discuss and vote. We probably still need to clarify how we're gonna approach that what if business. And the consideration of executive session.
Yeah, you can do that tomorrow or whenever,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so that deletes that section. Okay. I'm gonna talk with you tomorrow morning
Okay.
to go over this. And I know you got a memory that just, you remember everything too. And Lisa, you can help us too.
Got it recorded.
You got it recorded. We need to call for the motion.
I've already made the motion. You need to call for a
Roll
second.
call. We got a second.
Second, it's Emily.
Second was,
Or Ron, I mean.
Ortiz.
Ron.
I'll second.
Okay. Any debates, any final comments, pros and cons?
I think we about wore this one out.
Roll call.
Emily Clavy.
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dr. Garza.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. That took a time, but I think this was good discussion and good problem solving. Make it work. Okay. That means we'll modify the application form. That's my intention tomorrow morning, is to talk to verify what the motion actually is, and then determine what is this going to look like? And modify that application form entirely. Okay. Moving on, board, Mr. Pettis.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, the next action item is consideration of approval of board assignments to the district budget and audit committees.
Okay, board members, we had not done that, I don't know whether we did it before, but do we want to do this now, or do you want to wait until we have the new board member?
I think we wait till we have the new board member.
Okay.
Can we?
Yes.
Mr. Pettis, we're
We
gonna
still
have
have
time crunch.
two board members on it right now.
Okay.
So,
Keep current.
right. Is there a motion? Seeing none, we will not act on this.
No action taken.
The motion taken. No. Okay, let's go to the next.
Next action item, consideration and approval of changes to the public comment and policy regulations.
There's a section that was added to this, where it said that if the item cannot be discussed at that meeting, that they can request that it be put on the board agenda for subsequent meeting. So that gives the citizen or whoever an opportunity to bring it up without closing the issue for them. That is under D. If a member of the public is denied an opportunity to offer public comment because his or her topic is not is outside of the agenda item, the individual may request that the topic be added to the agenda of a future board meeting. And there are different ways that can be done. That can either be done by either contacting the board member or contacting the superintendent in the typical process. And then they can be considered. That is the change. There is another change under I. On establishment, we do not have a current policy regarding complaints against the superintendent. We have a policy that relates to staff members. We don't have one for the superintendent, so upon establishment of a subsequent board policy, if an individual wishes to bring a formal complaint against the superintendent, shall make arrangements, and so forth. Procedures for, and the last sentence says, procedures for conducting such an investigation will be developed and approved before any investigation begins. So that does still is applicable. And Mr. Pettis, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm fine with it. It sounds like a proper procedure for complaints to the board president.
That's the size of it. And it still allows you as board members to raise objections. And still enables you to, well, it still calls that we do not make comment or endorse or sanction any comments made during the public comment section. Do you wish to, is there a motion on this, or do you wish to review it some more?
I'm looking at F. You also have something in there that says any individual wishing to bring a formal complaint against an employee of the school district or against the superintendent of schools is encouraged to meet with, submit his formal complaint in writing to the superintendent, or in the case of a complaint against the superintendent or to the board president. So you're saying the same thing down here in I.
You're on page, you're in the last, we're on the, there's no page number. It's above
Second
G,
page,
okay.
yeah, it's above G. Either strike that one up here on under F, and just keep I.
It's redundant.
Unless you want to be tried twice. The I is more detailed.
It looks like F says it all. If you
Take out I.
struck the I, it doesn't limit or change any of the action.
Well, it says student employee matters related to individual students would not be included on any agenda. That means we're not gonna talk about any kids. We're not gonna talk about any employees. That's what F's saying. Will not be included on any agenda or any open portion of a board meeting, and not included, so that means it's sort of the same as it has always been, is that they're not in a position to do that. With students, we do not allow them to bring up students.
I think she was, we're talking about the next page on
The next page?
Yeah.
What does it say? Any individual wishing to bring a formal complaint against an employee of the school district or against the superintendent is encouraged to meet or submit his or formal complaint in writing to the superintendent, or in the case of a complaint against the superintendent, to the board president, to ensure that sufficient information is made available to the superintendent or to adequately investigate the complaint. Now, we do have existing policies on filing complaints against employees. We do have those policies. And it does not state that they go to the superintendent directly.
What we're not talking about, we're talking about the redundancy of I to the last portion of F, where it talks about the superintendent complaint. And you're saying it again in I. So which one are we going to
Okay.
use?
In F, it says that the board president, if it's a complaint against the superintendent, the board president is going to be the one to investigate the complaint. Is that what I read? On F, the last sentence, the last two lines?
Just telling them what they do, there's a complaint against the superintendent. Then you come down to I, and you're talking again about a complaint against the superintendent.
I think, Mr. President, I think, and we to clear that up to get, because you write the complaints about employees don't come all to me directly. If we could strike everything on the top of that page after board meeting, the very first top sentence.
Any individual.
Yeah, any individual, if you
Motion to
strike
break
all of that all the way to the end, and then it's covered in I, then that takes away the,
So take out take out everything from any individual, that whole section there,
yeah.
and leave I.
Leave I, and then that.
Then we should have something that says somebody an individual can bring a formal complaint against an employee of the school district. Where does it say that anywhere else?
If it's against an employee, it should go through the channels.
It goes through the existing policy on making complaints. And there is policy that is set up under
Yeah. Is there a policy in the manual that says what an employee does? If he wants to bring a complaint against another employee?
Yes.
So then, yeah, well, then we can strike that whole after
Sounds to me
board
that maybe
meeting.
we need to not take action
Yeah,
and redo this.
let's, do we know what we're looking for? We don't have to take any action on it.
So,
Oh, okay.
So we're looking at examining F and I. And then in terms of student, again, in terms of student, employee, and superintendent, clarify how that's gonna play out.
so not to subject all these, the rest of these to any longer board meeting. We can all read through there and send our comments to you on what maybe needs to be
Please
amended.
do.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. No action is gonna be taken on D. Are we ready
Okay.
for E?
Just call for a motion on D to do it right,
On which one?
on the D, because if you say no action, that means we tabled it. And we didn't table it when we approved the agenda.
Consideration of approval and approval of the changes to public comment and policy regulations. Is there a motion?
What are you asking?
Seeing none, there's no motion.
There we go. Now we're doing it. We gotta do things the right way.
Now, let's go to E.
Mr. President, Board, the consideration and approval of ancillary services with Cooperative Educational Services, CES, LDA Therapy Service, and Alicia LDA Therapy Services, and Alicia Lundstrom LLC Therapy Services, and I do recommend approval of this action item.
Is there a motion?
We ask, and we use all three?
Yes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second? Second round. Is there any questions or concerns regarding this? Seeing none?
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Guy Shambo.
Yes. Motion carries. Next, consent agenda.
Yes, Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved. I second.
Is there a second? Moved by Richard Jones, seconded by Emily Hunt Daly. Approve the consent agenda. Roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly.
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Guy Shambo.
Yes. Superintendent's report.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, I'll keep this brief and please ask questions if you have any. There was a lot going on this summer, the conferences, we had the New Mexico and NEMSAL, the Mexico Coalition of Educational Leaders, happened July 11th through 15th. There were a few of us that went. I personally attended the active shooter portions of this with Palms and Associates, and I participated in the Indian Education Tribal Consultation part of it. And of course, I spent a lot of time with the superintendent's group at that conference. I believe Reina was there and Lisa also, who attended some sessions. You attended.
Mostly on special ed changes and did some networking to help Jennifer out and share those contacts with her. And early literacy, and so just changes with structured literacy, early literacy, and MLSS.
And I went ahead and gone to the licensure sessions with New Mexico PED. They had some information with licensure, recruitment, residency.
And a big portion of this was the Secretary of Ed's presentation and his the state's vision and outlook for the next school year. We also had our GCCS Leadership Summit, and we had all of our leaders there, principals, coordinators, directors, and we had a good full days of lots of information. And we had a presenter that was trained us on leadership, behaviors of teams. We went over norms and expectations. Transformational leadership, all of our expectations for the year. We developed a handbook, administrative handbook for everybody that we distributed and went over in detail. We went over our responsibilities with our strategic plan. And each one of our leaders, our principals, presented on some of their strong areas. That was really a great session. So those are a couple of day two. We had the New Mexico Public Education Department, Jackie Costellas presented to us on that Thursday. Broke out into academic and non-academic groups. We also had a presentation by Kirk Carpenter, former superintendent of Aztec Schools, which again gave us a talk on school safety. And then Friday, we planned a morning with the community to share information with community stakeholders. We didn't have a bigger turnout as we wanted to, but we did have some people show up. And that was a nice morning of sharing our information with them and then playing cornhole with some of the people that wanted to stick around for a little while. So that's what I have for the summer conferences, Mr. President. And then the other item that I have here is the board calendar by request. And what I would like to suggest is it's in your packet. That's just the draft. And if the board members wanted to see anything else that you want to have included on there as an item.
Towards the back of your, at the end,
Go ahead, Mike.
yeah, in the superintendent's, portion of it,
Yeah.
Last pages, yeah.
last pages.
So if you wanted anything else included, just let Ray know and we'll include that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Announcements you see, future agenda items, get back to me, email the superintendent. Adjournment, is there a motion? Seconded by Richard Jones. Made by Emily Hindu, seconded by Richard Jones. Adjourn the meeting. Roll call.
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Aye.
Ortiz. Dr. Dyer Shambo.
Yes. Meeting adjourned at
9:02.
9:02.